And we're back. Is that good?
Yeah,
Is that
man.
Good energy?
I think it's good. I think it's great energy, man.
And we're back.
back. Fucking explosion sound effects everywhere, gunshots, all of that shit.
We're very much assuming this will be the first episode you hear back from our hiatus, which I guess is up to us. So it better be the first one you hear, unless something goes horribly wrong. But we're back. We took a few weeks off. Sorry, a couple months off, so that we could bank episodes for y'all, and we're finally back with The Simpsons season 1. So it has come to this.
So it has come to this.
Oh man. But you know, we're not recording this recently. We're recording this way in the past if you're hearing it. So we're just like a few days outside of the Oscar debacle. You all know what one we're talking about. That just despicable occurrence that happened at the Oscars. Cruella won an Academy Award.
The fuck is that about, man?
A disaster.
What type of shit is that about?
It was actually for wardrobe. You know, like if you're gonna give it to anything for that movie, if you're gonna give it to anything. I'm actually more upset that Mitchell's lost 10.
Yeah, I was just about to say, shout out to Mitchell's.
Yeah,
shout out to Mitchell's for sure. Definitely one of the best animated movies I've seen in a while. So
it's so good, man. I watched it twice. It's so good. Maybe I need to give Encanto another chance, but I don't.
I do too. I like it.
I liked Encanto.
I like it too.
I felt fine about being like that was good, but according to everyone else, it's the best. So, but Mitchell's, I don't know. I don't see myself liking it more than Mitchell's. So,
you know, I was talking to Bree and I was saying how like, because right, like I feel like, and many other people, it's not even just us, even people that fucking love Encanto, right? Like a lot of people feel like Mitchell's is the superior film. So that's one thing, but also this kind of clarifies that this is already something that we already knew, but this is just a further example of like how they obviously don't watch these movies before they vote for them because they would have picked Flea probably. You know what I mean? Like, because that's like the Oscar baity thing. So I feel
but it's also crazy because they basically did the bullshit thing again where they call animated movies for kids while Flea is in is nominated this year. Decidedly not for children.
Man, it just take one real motherfucker to get up there and be like, man, I'm not reading this shit. Animation is for everybody, yada yada yada. Somebody got to do it, and I don't know who's gonna do it.
It's so. This is it makes me so upset that they bring up all of the actresses who play the inferior live action counterparts to their animated characters in order to shit on animation.
So I didn't even see them say all of that. I just heard people tell me that they said it. And it wasn't a surprise to me because they do that every fucking year. Like
every time.
Yeah, I remember them doing that last time. So, but yeah, I didn't fucking know that. Oh,
it's whatever. I mean, like, it's just to be expected at this point. Like, if you look at the history of the Oscars, and especially this award, the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, it is like there's been like 22 wins, and it's been a Disney property 13 or 14 of those times. That's just the case, unless it's transcendent and pierces the zeitgeist in a way that we don't often see. It's not going to beat Disney. The only it is kind of crazy that early on, even though like I will make arguments that there are years that things that Disney should have won over other things, like sorry, Monsters Inc. over Shrek, but but you know, it's so like. There's so many years where I'm looking through there and I'm like, oh yeah, these are good they're good Disney movies. Not to say they're bad, but like these aren't winning because they're the best movie. They're winning because they have the most recognition. They have the most name recognition.
I feel like a lot of people voting just kind of went like, oh my kid watches this Encanto shit every fucking day.
Yes,
I'm not just vote for that. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
I don't know.
That's exactly right. It's frustrating.
And you know, sometimes like that'll work in a movie's favor. Like Because sometimes like the most popular movie would be the one deserving, right? Like Spider-Verse. When Spider-Verse won, it was.
Yes,
I feel like that might have been
easily
part
the
of
most
it too.
deserving.
Yeah, it was definitely the most deserving, and it was like, yeah, I guess it was the most. What else came out that year? It was like Wreck-It
Incredibles 2
Ralph
was.
2.
I
Oh,
think it was.
Incredibles
Was
2.
that one also up? Yeah.
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph 2 for
It's
sure.
the one that was its real competition was Incredibles 2. I
Incredibles 2,
think.
yeah. Yeah.
I believe. But that is, I think, an example of one that pierced the zeitgeist. It was so different.
Exactly.
It was there's already so many Spider-Man movies, and yet this one stood out amongst those and amongst all of these other animated films. It just had such a unique style and flair, and it just approached animation differently.
So how do we classify what happened with Rango? Like, what the fuck was that? Like, how did Rango win? I mean, it should have, but how do we even like?
That is a good question. Gore Verbinski is such an interesting filmmaker. That is, let's look at that year. I think it's because of the lack of competition that year.
I think right.
It's Cars. I think it was probably a Cars year because there's no nomination. I think it was Cars 2 year because there's no Cars.
Cars 2, right.
So I will say, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I imagine you would look at this lineup and say Chico and Rita deserved that.
Oh fuck yeah! Now that I've seen Chico and Rita,
but it was up against a Cat in Paris, which I haven't seen, which looks great, French animated, beautifully animated. Kung Fu Panda 2, which is a sequel, and Puss in Boots, which is a spinoff. You know, like, and I'm not like a Rango head. I'm not like the biggest Rango guy, but I like that Rango one.
I do like that Rango one.
Yeah.
I like that Rango one. I like that. I feel like I might even like Rango a little more than Puss in Boots.
I do. So I definitely do.
Cool
I've never seen Kung Fu Panda 2, Chico Rita, or Cat in Paris.
I can't do that.
But it's between those two. I like Rango more, but I also just like is it stop motion or is it just look like it's stop motion?
Oh, Rango? No, it's CG. It's
CG.
It's really fucking pretty style. CG. Yeah, it's really like
it looks really cool.
It's fucking ugly. All the animals look dried out because they're in the desert, and like it looks like a Western. It's shot. It's like designed to look like it was shot like a Western. Like it's really.
Man, you know what upsets me? I still haven't seen this one, but the following year, 2012, there were 3 stop motion animated movies up, which is so cool. Paranorman, Frankenweenie, and the Pirates Band of Misfits were all 3 up in that list of 5, and the other 2 were Brave and Wreck-It Ralph, and Brave won. Which I haven't seen Brave.
You said,
but even if you're gonna give it to a Disney, like Wreck-It Ralph's better than Brave. Sorry,
Wreck-It Ralph is 1,000,000% better than Brave. You said it was Paranorman, Frankenweenie, and Pirates too?
Yeah.
Oh man, all of those, like, people love all of those more than they love Brave. That's so fucking funny.
It's bizarre,
well, maybe I don't know. Maybe
like
not Frankenweenie. I guess I don't really hear too much about.
Yeah, people don't rave about Frankenweenie, but it is Tim Burton, and like the animation is excellent. I probably, my gut says Paranorman is the one I like the best out of these 5. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man. Like I just look at this category at the Oscars and it bums me out. Like when I see, like.
It's just, you know what, though? A lot of these movies do deserve awards, though. They just don't deserve to be bunched in with movies that aren't the same kind of movie.
It bums me out so hard when I see, like, Miyazaki's films lose to lesser films. Like why did Frozen beat The Wind Rises? Why did Big Hero 6 beat The Tale of the Princess Kaguya? Why? Like, I just think there's so many factors when they look at these things. I don't think people take the foreign films seriously. Like what foreign animated film has ever won? I think a single one. I think it's a single one, and that
Spirited
is
Away.
Spirited Away.
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
Can't think of anything else.
Like, truth, if I'm being honest, but I mean, granted, it's all subjective, but like, I don't know if there's a single movie I would choose over any of Miyazaki's movies if they were up for these awards. But you get stuff like Secret of the Kells isn't that isn't that it's an Irish and French animated film? Those that gets nominated but doesn't win. The Illusionist is French, that gets nominated but doesn't win. Cat in Paris, Chico and Rita, they get nominated but don't win. Ernest and Celestine and The Wind Rises get nominated. They lose to Frozen. Nice. Song of the Sea, Pale Princess Kaguya, both go up against Big Hero 6 and lose. Like,
nice.
I don't know. It just seems like there's a pattern. Okay.
It feels like it seems like there's a pattern, and it feels like whenever they add one or two foreign films to the category, it feels like they're meeting a quota. Like everything about everything about that category just feels patronizing to me as a fan of animation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I don't know what it's gonna take to change that, but it is what it is, I guess. And that's like, what the Annies are for.
Right. And the Annies aren't perfect, but the Annies still at least like they got it right this year. Mitchell's. They got it right. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, will any award show ever be able to like overcome the political bureaucratic aspect to truly give out awards?
No way.
Like there's always going to be people who complain and or disagree. That's just always how it's going to be.
Right.
And I just wish there was a little more variety in the choices, because you look back in Encanto, Soul, Toy Story 4, and then Spider-Verse broke through. And then Coco, Zootopia, Inside Out, Big Hero 6, Frozen, Brave. Come on. Like, come on.
It's rough.
I like Big Hero 6.
I like Big Hero 6 too.
I don't think I would have chosen it that year. I am one of the few who thinks Inside Out's a little overrated. I know I know that's most of me.
I kind of do too. I
think it's good. It's a good.
I'm just sick of people acting like it's like top 5. I think that's what annoys me. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I know it's mid to me. It's mid-tier Pixar, which is still very good.
They're all fucking good movies, and that's important. Is that they're all good movies. I just don't. There's no way that it is very, very easy for me to name 5 Pixar movies better than Inside Out. You know what I mean? And that's not that's not a dig.
I like at least 10 more than Inside Out.
It's not a dig on Inside Out. It's just
right.
Come on, bro. Like,
dude,
you already got to put 3 Toy Stories before it. You already got to do that. You know what I mean?
I would honestly, put 4 Toy Stories. I would put 4 Toy Stories above it.
You feel me? So like, come on. Come on, man.
Oh, man.
You got to put 4 Toy Stories in front of you. You got to put The Incredibles in front of it. You got to put Ratatouille. Like, come on. All right.
You know what it also beat, which is actually a great transition into our next plug. It beat Anomalisa, which bums me out because Anomalisa is incredible.
What it beat Anomalisa? Inside Out?
Yeah.
Hell on Earth. They showed a hammer in Anomalisa.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, but that brings us to what we want to say. While we've been gone, we have been plugging away at the Patreon. So if you aren't a member of our Patreon, and maybe we're waiting to hold out until we add more content, then now's potentially a good time. We covered Anomalisa. So here's the list of what we've covered so far. And honestly, by the time this comes out, we'll have like 3 or 4 more episodes. So actually, I wrote it out. Let me YouTube. I did a little plug for us on the pod today.
Nice.
Or on the channel today. Let's see. Okay, so the full list that we have recorded so far is Shrek, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, Puss in Boots, for all you Shrek heads out there.
That's right.
Then we got Anomalisa, Paddington, Paddington 2, Ted, and Ted 2. We did a funny little mini series where we did the most wholesome teddy bear movie and the least wholesome teddy bear movie.
That's right.
Which was truthfully pretty entertaining. It was fun to do. I honestly, check out that Ted 2 episode. I haven't listened back yet, but it was one of the few times where all of us just didn't like something.
Oh yeah, we were so fucking mad.
We were having a fun time.
We were all so fucking mad. But the Ted 1 episode is like me being somewhat of a Ted apologist, but not all the way. And Johnny kind of stepping his foot in there, and then Mikey just like, no, fuck out of here, turn this shit off.
I had a fun time talking about those movies with you guys, though. That was great. So, and then also like what you're going to get probably by the time this comes out is we're going to be doing next. We're doing the Toy Stories. We're doing Toy Story 1 through 4 leading up to Lightyear. Lightyear will probably be an episode that drops on the main feed. But if you want us to build up to it, then you got to check out the Patreon.
Right.
And we got thoughts on Toy Stories. We might get into some arguments, but overall we love them all, so it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely, all good movies. That's why you saw that IGN Pixar list that was going around.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't bother. It didn't fucking bother, man.
I didn't either, bro. I really didn't either, bro. And then my the next morning, my roommate texted me and he sent me the link to the article, and he was like, "I'm bugging because this don't look like a bad list," and I was like, "You definitely bugging, bro." And here's why. And then I was explaining it to him. And I was like, see, the reason you probably looked at it and was like, oh, that's not that bad is because you just kind of look at it and go, oh, these are all good movies. And you just say, fuck it. And just like, like don't pay it any mind. You know what I mean?
Well, right off the bat, they put Cars 3 below Cars 2, which is insane.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
They bugged
Cars
out.
2 is so, like, Cars 3 is a lot better than Cars 2. I think Cars 3 is still pretty low on the list, but somebody at Pixar is like, a Cars 2 somebody at IGN is a Cars 2 apologist to put it above. Sure. And then like, you know, it's not my favorite, but Monsters U is really low on the list. And I don't know, man. I really think they've only made a few bad ones. And it feels like they're definitely like skewing so that the newer stuff is lower. Like everything that came out in the last few years is 12 or below, you know, it's like the bottom half. It's, I don't know, like ultimately you're never going to find a list that everyone's happy with. Right. But I didn't even bother looking at this one, man. And I know we're disagreeing about this, but it bums me out that the Toy Story 3 is so highly considered the best Toy Story. I think it's a good movie. I think it's still top 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere on there. Like I think all 4 Toy Stories are among the best Pixar's. Man,
we'll figure it out.
Toy Story 2 is too low. Toy Story 2 low on your list, IGN.
Nice. Nice.
All right. And with that, I think we should probably cue the theme song and start talking about the Simpies.
I've been watching them for years. It's always been something that fit with all the animated characters that's doing their own bits. With a fry who's in the future and a family guy that sucks. With a father from a Hilleberger family runs them up. The show inspires is the same guy, except he totally say and diverse.
Let's watch cartoons that
that's bananas.
As rough.
What the f*** is up, everybody? Welcome to Cartoons That Curse, the podcast about cartoons that say swear words, aka adult animated films. My name is Johnny. I'm here with my co-host Tariq. Tariq, how are you today?
Great. Now that we're finally talking about The Simpsons.
Finally talking about The Simpsons. If you're not familiar, like the whole reason Tariq and I decided to do this podcast is because we jumped on a call, talk about collabing, and we just didn't stop geeking out about The Simpsons. We just were like, remember this episode? Remember this? Yeah, remember this episode? Remember this? It was the best. And we just realized that we both had like an affinity for these adult animated shows that we grew up on, and that we both love them dearly, and that they inspired us and like kind of helped us become who we are, truthfully, like partially raised us.
Yeah, bro.
And I think The Simpsons is likely we talked about Futurama already. We talked about a lot of ones that we love, but like The Simpsons is the show. Like this is the show.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the one. And so we're talking about Simpsons season 1 today. If if you're new, we normally do mini series. So like normally you would just see next week, like, or in 2 weeks, we talk about Simpsons season 2. Instead, we're doing a new thing on this. We just took a hiatus. We're doing Simpsons season 1, and we're also recording about Family Guy season 1, King of the Hill season 1, South Park season 1, Bob's Burgers season 1. We're going to do all of those and release them all one at a time. So, and then we're going to decide what series we want to go down that road with. So we're covering season 1s, and today we're starting with the Simpsons season 1, which fascinating history of Simpsons season 1. Fascinating history. Tariq, how do you feel about Simpsons season 1 in general? Like how do you think it feels compared to the seasons that came after it?
Yeah, you know what's funny is that like people always kind of treat it like it's a different show when it first starts. And I guess I always did too, but like after watching these 13, it's not that different. It's rough. It is rough around the edges. You know what I mean? Yep. But at the same time, like that roughness is like the charm in it. You know, like the show never looks like this again, for better or for worse. You know, and the way that it's written is like jokes in this season. I'm like, oh, they would have did that in like season 4 or 5,
right?
Like,
I do feel like
here this early.
I think the big difference for me is it almost feels like this season is a little more focused on the premises than the comedy. There is good comedy. There's really funny stuff, but I feel like the thing that stands out and why I love season 1 of The Simpsons is how kind of heavy these premises get. like this. Yeah. This is almost like this. Obviously, there's shades of this later in the show, but this is like a season that is really about a struggling family. Like they have their issues, and they don't like undercut those issues with humor. It's those are the focus of these episodes. Should we talk about the history of this show though, because it's got a crazy history?
Yeah. There you go. Matt Groening doing his comic strip Life in Hell, and somebody gave a print of one of those comic strips to James L. Brooks, who ended up producing the Tracy Ullman show. And he realized he wanted little cartoon things in the middle of it, cartoon shorts in the middle of it. So he reached out to Matt. Matt came in for the meeting, and somebody walked past and said, "I can't wait to hear your new idea." And he said, "Excuse me?" So in 15 minutes, he panicked and drew a random family and named everybody after members of his family. His mother, Marge, his dad, Homer, his sister, Lisa, his other sister, Maggie. Maggie. And
then he changed his name to Bart, which is an anagram of Brat.
Brat, yeah. Maggie Groening actually ended up marrying Craig Bartlett, who created Hey Arnold.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Hey Arnold got its start as a comic strip in Simpsons Illustrated.
I didn't know that either. What the heck?
It was a comic strip in Simpsons Illustrated, and it was shorts on Sesame Street, like claymation shorts on Sesame Street.
I remember the claymation. The claymation. Wow. Wild.
Yeah.
So Groening goes haphazardly pitches this thrown together family sitcom. And they did like 3 seasons worth. There's like almost 50 shorts. There's like almost 50 Simpsons shorts, which we were just talking about how stupid it is that so many of them haven't been released officially. I have some Simpsons VHSs, and in between each VHS has 2 episodes, and in between them there's 1 short. So I've seen all those, and I've watched them all. I've downloaded and watched them all, but a lot of them are shitty quality because they've never released them officially a lot of them officially.
Yeah.
So, but they made a lot of them. They were animated by Klasky Csupo.
Rugrats Studio.
Exactly, Rugrats Studio. And the original animators were Wes Archer, David Silverman, and Bill Kopp. Archer and Silverman would go on to do seasons 2 and 3, so they would continue to do the show. And obviously they became probably the most celebrated, maybe not most celebrated, but they are the most consistent and persistent and directors in Simpsons history, I would say.
Wes Archer went on to practically define adult animation. He's directed on
he's
King
been
of the
in
Hill,
everything.
He's still directing on Rick and Morty. You know what I mean? Like he's still doing shit. And David Silverman is my personal favorite Simpsons director, and he directed the movie.
He directed the movie. He was the guy that got into bringing the movie.
Yeah, and every time they go to theaters, they get him because he does all of those. He does those shorts on Disney Plus that I don't like, but he also did the theatrical Maggie shorts. The first one that got
the daycare, Longest Daycare. I love that one. I think that's really good.
Shit's good.
It's a cool history. Also, I didn't realize until I learned today that at Klasky Csupo, their colorist was the guy who decided the person who decided to make them yellow. I didn't know that was a decision made in the animation. I just found that out. I was like, oh, I thought that was just part of what they did.
Because I know, like the reasoning was if you're flicking through the channels, it doesn't look like anything else. So you're just like, what's this yellow thing? And then like,
pretty smart.
That's what makes you stay. And let the record be known, Tracey Ullman hated the Simpsons shorts. Mm-hmm. She didn't want him to be a part of that show. She was actually supposed to be Marge, but she felt like she had better things to do.
And then she sued to try and get money for it after its success, thinking she was owed for its success.
Right.
And like I like Tracey Ullman. I think she's got an important place in TV and comedy history. But that was a big fat L that you deserve to take, Tracey Ullman.
That was an L. That's definitely an L. And then at a certain point, they come to Matt and they say they want to do a special, like I guess some kind of half-hour special, something with the family. And then I don't remember whose decision it was, but somebody was like, oh, let's just do a show. Fuck it.
Right.
And then
and they did.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing is that Castellaneta and Julie Kavner and Dan Castellaneta were Tracey Ullman cast members. They were only cast because they were already on the Ullman show.
They were there already.
And like, fortunately, they got Castellaneta, who is truly one of the best voice actors out there.
For sure.
And Julie Kavner obviously has one of the greatest voices out there. She's got one voice, but she's got one of the greatest voices out there. And like, it's crazy how fortunate the elements coming together were for the show.
And like Nancy Cartwright came in to read for Lisa. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what happened, but she ended up being Bart. And again, Yardley Smith, fucking perfect voice.
Dude, I love. They're all perfect in the cast.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This is a bit of a tangent. So I'm like, for the first time in years, I'm actively caught up with The Simpsons. I have been watching this season, and I am up to date, not on the whole show, but on this season. And I feel like in the last few seasons, obviously, everyone talks about how Marge her voice is waning and she's sounding older. But in the last like few episodes, for some reason, I feel like it sounded closer to normal. I don't know if I'm just getting used to it, or
I feel like they might be like writing to that, because honestly, Marge's voice only really like I guess it only really like makes me raise an eyebrow nowadays when
they get her to yell.
Yeah, when she has to yell. When she has to yell, or she has to like sing and everything like that, But I noticed lately they haven't been making her do that.
Right.
So I feel like that might be part of it. Honestly, bro, if I'm gonna be honest, I think the reason it's like this is because Marge's voice isn't 1-to-1 Julie Kavner's natural voice. Julie Kavner's natural voice is like a little higher than like Patty and Selma.
Right.
What she does is she kind of like goes higher to do Marge. And I think as she got older, it became more difficult to go higher. So what I think they should do is they should just let her talk normal and then they pitch it
up.
Yeah,
then maybe they're doing that, and maybe they're doing that.
Maybe,
yeah.
If they are, I think it's a good call. Bro,
I mean, like obviously we know from South Park that like magic can be done from pitch shifting. Like when you hear Trey Parker do Cartman in the booth, it does not sound like Cartman. Mm-hmm. It's just the intonations. But man, it's so interesting. Honestly, I also want to ask the audience. By the time this comes out, we'll be getting close to the end, if not at the end of Simpsons season 33. Should we do a Simpsons season 33 episode after it ends? Just like, we don't even need to go through every episode, but I kind of just like, I'm so fascinated by it and I'm enjoying it so much. And I just kind of want to like, should we talk about it when it's done?
Yeah. I wouldn't mind.
There's actually an episode I'm going to talk about later as we, just because of how it relates to one of the ones in this season. So,
nice.
The other important thing, all right, let's get back to season 1. The other important thing that I think was like wildly important for for this show to be able to flourish in the way that it was is that James L. Brooks had such an impeccable track record that he was able to basically negotiate that Fox couldn't really interfere creatively with The Simpsons. They got to do what they want, which is actually something we talked about in our first Futurama episode, because that is something that Matt Groening, because of his experience on The Simpsons, expected when they went to do Futurama. And then Fox obviously wanted a little bit more creative control, which we talked a lot about the episode I Roommate, which we both love. But that was infamously the episode that the studio was like, well, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And they did it. And then the studio was like, well, this is bad. And so I just thought that was interesting that maybe Matt Groening wasn't quite privy to how television normally works because he got spoiled working with James L. Brooks.
Well, spoiled. Yeah, absolutely.
So they start making season 1 of The Simpsons, 13 episode order. It is they put together a writing staff, and it is show run by a trio of Matt Groening, James L. Brooks, and Sam Simon.
All right.
Now there's maybe some criticisms to make about their process here. The first episode that aired is Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, which was meant to be the Christmas special later in the season. And it was written by Mimi Pond, who takes issue with the writers because she felt she was unfairly ousted from that room for being a woman, which I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I wrote
down that the first episode of The Simpsons is written by a woman, and it's so funny because you can go through the episode list and you could probably count on all 10 of your fingers how many episodes are written by women.
Exactly. And there is I can't remember what producer kind of made that call. It might have been James Brooks but they kind of pointedly were like we think this is like the men should be in the writer's room type of situation, which is a fucking bummer. Yes. Granted, they have great writers, but like Simpsons Roasting on Open Fire is a good script.
It is.
It's a good script.
Honestly, and you know what? Because the pilot is supposed to be Some Enchanted Evening, which actually ended up at the end of the season.
Which is bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like I don't know if you could ever find another situation where the first episode ended up being the finale.
The one aired last.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire is miles better as a first outing.
I was going to bring that up.
Some Enchanted Evening, because look, right? I don't know if we actually talked about it on here. But I know me and you have talked about it. I just don't know if we talked about it on here. But when you start a show, you got to start it at the point where why are we starting here? What changes? Why is this the inciting incident? Why is this where we're picking up at? And Simpsons Roasting is when they get the fucking dog.
They get the dog.
So it's perfect. That's when the really family becomes whole.
And I don't know if and I also definitely think it's possible because so here's how it went down. They started animating the show. I didn't learn this until today. So I knew that the reason they moved it is because they got some of their first drafts back, and they were like, wow, 70% of this episode needs to be reanimated. We got issues with 70% of this.
They said they watched it and everybody was silent, and then somebody said, I think it was Jim Brooks, he said, this is shit. And then I guess it was man, I don't remember Gabor, who's like head of Klasky Csupo. He's like, what do you mean shit? And then he said, a foul substance that yada yada yada. Like he defined it, like being a smart ass.
Very James Brooks.
Yeah. And then Gabor was like, I don't know, maybe this shit isn't funny. And like, yeah, like so they didn't have like a good relationship over there or whatever. And I think like when they got like an Emmy or something like that, and then one of them turned to Gabor and said, I guess this shit is funny after all, huh? There's a lot of petty shit going on over there, bro. Some sick shit. The tea is hot. You know what I mean?
The thing that I read today that I was like, wow, that was that bad, was that they basically said that if the second episode had come back with similar issues, they were going to abandon the show.
They were going to pull a plug.
Which is nuts to think about if that had happened. If they had fucked up, like even if they had fucked up 2 episodes and then everything after that was fine, maybe we would never have known. Maybe we would have lived in a world where The Simpsons didn't happen.
Right.
Like,
that's and what does that even fucking look like, bro?
Right.
Like, what does television look like without, you know what I mean? But it's like, it's one of those things where like all of the stars just ended up like aligning and everything was in their favor. It reminds me of the Charlie Brown Christmas special. It went through something similar where like, they were like, okay, we're going to make this Charlie Brown thing. We've never animated a full Charlie Brown thing before. So now everybody has to figure it out. And we only have, it was like either 6 or 9 months, some insanely short amount of time to put it together. And it was sponsored by Coca-Cola. And then they watched the episode, they watched the Christmas special back. And then they were like, oh my God, this is so bad. It was just looking at all the animation mistakes. And they're like, this is stupid. This is bad. And then, like they got to the credits and whoever typed out the credits misspelled Schultz. And then that just kind of broke everybody. And then one of the producers, I think, said, yo, I think we just killed Charlie Brown. Like, I think this is it. Like, I think this is it. Like, this is over. And then
oh my God.
Ed Levitt, who was one of the animators on the special, he stood up and he said, they're gonna play this for 100 years. And everybody thought he was insane. Like, they, like, laughed him out the room. And it's, like, the most important Christmas special ever at this point.
Dude, it's truly one of the most important in television history.
Yeah. And this is the same thing for The Simpsons, bro. It's like you come so close to thinking, like, this is the worst thing. Right. And we fucked this up and this is it. Nothing's going to come from this. But that always happens when you reinvent the wheel because you never understand what you just did. You never understand that you just kind of created something that's not like anything else.
Right. I agree with you that this episode feels like a better, like I see how Some Enchanted Evening works as a pilot. Because it establishes the family dynamics. It's like I see how that was the first story they wrote. But this, and I can't decide if it's because, I can't decide if it's like it's possible that they went back and adjusted things when they knew that it was going to be the first one, or maybe it's because it feels this way because it was always supposed to be the special. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it starts with that title card. The Simpsons Christmas special. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is kind of cool as the first episode of the show because it feels like an extension of the shorts where it's like, oh, they got the shorts, then they got a Christmas special, and then they got a show. Even though that's not how it happened. You know what I mean? Right. And so, but the thing that like, yes, the dog tying it all together in the end makes a huge impact on like this working as a pilot, but also just the opening after. So the opening showing the school, showing the school.
You're about to say what I wrote down. I know exactly what you're about to say.
it illustrates the characters perfectly. It brings it like explains all of the characters in the opening are like, it's like a good concise illustration of like what makes these characters to me, other than maybe Lisa.
Lisa's naked.
Right. Yes. That is something I always noticed.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. But The other thing that I think works in its favor is Marge writing her Christmas card.
That's what
Marge writing the Christmas card feels like the perfect way to introduce the family. And it works
so fucking good. There's a picture of Grandpa in the back, and she says, "Grandpa's still with us," and you got Homer struggling with the lights, and then she says like Lisa got straight A's, and then there's Bart. Well, we love Bart.
We love Bart.
You know what I mean?
We love Bart.
They get everybody in there, and you by the end of her doing that, you fully understand all of the characters.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't see the show starting any other way. It's just a brilliant way to start the show off.
It's perfect. It's the perfect opening sequence. There's things about it that I'm curious about. Like they talk about Snowball getting run over, and so they got their new cat. That feels like were they going to reference that in any episodes before this?
Right.
Or was that written in when they were like, oh, this is the pilot now? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm so curious about that. Do we see Snowball in episodes that were written before The Simpsons roasting on a fire? I know we don't see the dog.
I actually don't know. I don't think so.
So interesting. Yeah, but literally one of my notes is this is such a good pilot, even though it actually wasn't meant to be question mark. Yeah, it's such a good way to start the show. It also immediately, like, there's so many characters that it introduces immediately. Like Skinner is there, Moe, Barney, they introduce not only Flanders but Homer's sort of rivalry and inferiority complex with Flanders. You got Milhouse, you got Patty and Selma. You fully understand Patty and Selma's dynamic with Homer.
And it's just there's this fucking that's why I keep saying that, like, I don't think this is as different from the show as like we always thought it was, because there's this fucking brilliant scene where Patty and Selma are down talking Homer, and Lisa gives this insane speech about how like them talking shit about him is like them talking shit about her because she's an extension of her dad, and like all this like super intelligent shit for an 8-year-old to say. And that's Lisa. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. They kind of got it. They kind of nailed it, bro. It's really fucking good.
I agree. And then, like, I think this also is episode also illustrates what I love the most about season 1, which we'll talk about as this whole thing goes on. And it's that, like, the premise isn't comedic. The premise here is not a comedy premise. The premise is that, I mean, granted, aspects of it are the whole, like, Bart wasting all of their Christmas money because he gets a tattoo is comedic, but the crux of the conflict is that plus Homer didn't get his big Christmas bonus because the power plant is greedy. Like, they even spell out, like, we just didn't want to cut any of the bonuses for the executives, and so you don't get your bonuses. So the premise is that it is literally a dad who can't afford to get his kids presents. That is not funny
at all.
It's not a funny idea. And like a lot of these episodes this season, the premises aren't inherently funny. They all stem from familial issues or insecurities or even just straight up depression. And like, that's to me the thing that makes season 1 stand out. I don't necessarily think it's the comedy. I don't necessarily think it's, I mean, granted, the animation is very different, but that's just like the visual that helps you see that it's different. I think if it was animated exactly the same as seasons 2 through 8 or whatever, it would probably, you know, the thing that would make it stand out is these premises that are not as inherently comedic. Granted, there's plenty of episodes that aren't inherently comedic throughout the show, but like they're heavy. They're heavy in this. Like that's a heavy premise.
A lot of these episodes, the act break, whether it be in the first act or the second act, is just kind of like a character just being sad and it just fades out. Like in this one, Homer just hangs his head when he looks at like Flanders' lights and like how shitty his house looks. He just hangs his head and the screen just fades to fucking black, bro.
Dude, like, it's that they do that a lot in this season, and it's like it's going out on dramatic beats instead of outs on comedic beats, which is very rare. Like that's like kind of the thing that these shows would become known for. Like these adult animated shows, like you always have a joke out into the act break, and these were just dramatic, sad beats, and I think that adds to the slightly different tone of this season. But yeah, like you're right in that, like the jokes that are in it, they don't feel all that different than jokes you find in season 2, 3, or 4. You know, it's still like the DNA of the show is still here. You see how it evolved into what it became, even if this still feels like it's got these other aspects that make it feel a little different. One of my favorite things about this season, but in this, I guess I'll talk about them as we go on, but in this episode in particular, when you've got the premise that Bart's going to go pull off Santa's beard, and it turns out to be Homer, which is a funny premise. It's a funny premise. Like kid pulls Santa's beard off, turns out to be his dad. But what I like about it is that like Homer doesn't like you. I feel like in some later Simpsons, you might expect the strangling, you know, you might expect him to just get super pissed at him and he gets mad for a second, but really Homer just immediately opens up to Bart and says, here's what's happening. I can't afford Christmas presents. Like, this is why I'm doing this. And it's sweet. Like it was this sweet moment where he's like letting Bart in on the drama that's going on in his head. And like, and there's a few moments like that in this season that I feel in this season more than I feel in later seasons of the show.
The thing I love about Bart in this one is that like once he finds out what's going on, he's super supportive. Like he's like, okay, Dad, now we got to figure this out. You know what I mean? And like when Homer is like literally out of it, Bart is the one that gives him the pep talk. Bart is the one that stays optimistic.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, I don't know. I really like that. And, you know, that's not to say that it doesn't happen later on, because it definitely does. But
right,
I really appreciate that about this.
Me too. I think this is a really good episode. Really, really great pilot. It's a great pilot. You know, I feel like I never really thought about this one much as a pilot in terms of like up there in the upper echelon of like quality animated pilots. I was like, oh yeah, Simpsons season 1 is different, but you know, then it's The Simpsons. And now rewatching it, I'm like, this is a really good pilot. This is up there. This is really, it's really strong. Yeah. You got anything else? About Simpsons Roasting on Open Fire before we start moving on?
You're gonna hear me say this a lot during this episode, but I fucking love how it looks.
I do too.
I wrote that.
I love the looser season 1 animation. It's really charming. Yeah. It's just charming.
And it's when they're watching the Happy Little Elves on TV, Lisa's sitting on Abe's lap, and I thought that was really cute.
Oh, that is cute. That is cute.
And my last note is that I love that when they just like the moment that Homer decides to bring the dog home is when it like jumps in his arms and he's like cursing the dog out. He's like a loser. He's this, he's that. And he jumps in his arms and he's like, oh, but he's a Simpson. And I think that's so nice.
I love that so much. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. And even just like that whole premise at the dog track of them being like, we got the sure thing. And even Bart calling out initially, he's just like, I've seen all the TV specials. I've seen all the Christmas specials. There's always a miracle that saves the day at the end. It happened to them. It happened to them. It happened to them. And it's going to happen to us. And then for them to subvert that, because they still like, obviously Santa's little helper comes in and does save the day and kind of fixes everything. But it's not, it didn't save it in the way they expected. They didn't get all the money and get everyone the gifts. They completed the family. They completed the family. It's just a smart episode, man.
Yeah,
Good start to the fucking show.
Yeah.
It's good. All right, should we move on to Bart the Genius?
Let's do it.
All right. So my first note is I really like the season 1 title sequence. It's
I do too. This is the first one with
it. They just took out a lot of, they changed a lot of the stuff after season 1. Like some of the gags. Like there's like the gag. Yeah, the stop. Yeah, exactly.
Stop, yeah.
And it all looks a little different too. Like the color of the school is different, and there's some different background stuff. Like later you see in the intro sequence, Burns and Smithers are like behind Homer, and this one it's just a dude eating a sandwich, something like that. Like, and then, but I like their, I don't know. I'll say this again. Like I like how it looks. It's like looser. I like the backgrounds. I like the TV. If you'll notice in the Cartoons That Curse intro sequence that we cut together, the TV I used is from season 1, not from the rest. I used the original one.
That's the season 1 couch gag too, actually. That's in the title sequence.
It is. Yeah, I think it's like the second or third episode that they use that one.
This one has one of my favorite couch gags when Bart comes flying up, and then like when they cut to the TV, you see him fall down. It's one of my favorite ones ever. I love that shit. It's
so funny because it's like one of the few that actually does something with the TV screen part of the title sequence, and it's the first one, and it's the first one. It's the first couch gag we ever saw. It's kind of nuts. Right. Okay, so my first note after this is, so this whole opening where they're playing Scrabble, which makes so much sense for like. Also, I guess we should point out this was meant to be the second episode. This is correct in its order. Granted, there was supposed to be one more before it that wasn't Simpsons Roasting on Open Fire, but this is written as a second episode. And like Family Game Night makes so much sense for doing a family sitcom early on. Just like Family Game Night, what's their dynamic? How does this tie into the story here? My favorite part of the sequence, though, is how they drew Homer when Bart is explaining Quidgy Bro.
That whole scene is so fucking funny looking, bro. Like everybody looks hilarious, especially Homer. It's so funny.
There's so many things about this season that you see they abandoned, like in terms of how it looks. Like there's so many front-facing shots of characters facing directly to the camera.
They aren't scared of that. They just can't seem to nail the house, bro. Like there's just like infinite doors, and sometimes the kitchen leads to the living room. Like it's so weird. Like not the living room, but like, the front door. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like rooms are like inconsistent or whatever. Like, man, there's a lot of things that that they would just never do. One thing that we didn't talk about in the pilot, actually, that's prevalent throughout this entire season, which is something that they've made note of, the fact that they've gotten rid of, is that they make Maggie suck her pacifier throughout dialogue, and they removed that because they felt like it was distracting.
I didn't even notice, so I guess it didn't distract me.
It didn't distract me either, but I know that that's something that they've made.
That's really interesting. Before. That's really interesting. Yeah, there's so many things. Like I know they do some things like this, but I also noticed that they did like in a few episodes they have like they'll do a unique tone or color shift in some kind of dream or some kind of dream sequence. Like in this one, it's when Bart's trying to figure out the math problem, the train math problem. And all of a sudden everything goes black and white. The characters look super different. They look like they're from a different cartoon other than Bart. But I really like that. There's a lot of those in this season, and I like them. They really stand out. I think the best one is Life on the Fast Lane, but that
episode's so fucking funny, bro.
It's really good. We'll talk about it. I forgot to rank. Funny. Shit, I have to rank before the end. Of this.
Okay.
But it's I really liked that. I really appreciated that they kind of immediately were like, well, let's do some experimenting with how some of this stuff looks and sounds and feels. And I really like that sequence. It visually illustrates Bart's confusion in a really smart way.
I think with a lot of adult animated shows, because I think this kind of happened with King of the Hill too, like early on in like the first season, is that there's like this small insecurity where they're like, okay, we're making an animated show and we're making this sitcom, and we want to make these characters feel like real people, so let's put that in front of it. But then there's this little insecurity that makes them go, but why is this animated though? We got to do something that has to be animated. And I think that's why like dream sequences are like really prevalent. Yeah,
you might be right about that.
But like you said, they're all, I don't fucking drag my feet when they happen. You know what I mean? Like they're all cool.
Right.
Because this just looks cool, bro. If you're a fan of just like loose animation and like stuff that just kind of like, it just kind of feels like a human touched it. You know what I mean? Like this season is just like, I couldn't get enough of some of this shit.
Same. Another episode where they like set up characters well. Like this is kind of our first real Martin stuff, and they immediately make Martin to be a little wiener.
There's Edna. Edna's here in this one.
Yes. Love Edna. Also, interestingly, so obviously this episode's called Bart the Genius, and Bart ends up going to another school because he cheats on his exam. But the other teacher is played by Marsha Wallace too. I'm pretty sure it sounds like her, but it sounds like it's just it's like a softer Krabappel. And I thought that was a nice touch. It was just like putting him in a little bit of a bizarre world. One of my favorite jokes in the whole episode, it's so dumb, is when he gets to school and he realizes he doesn't have a tie, and it's really sweet. Homer gives him his tie and he's like, I'm going to teach you how to put on a tie. And it's just a clip-on tie. Yeah. It's not a real tie. Homer doesn't know how to tie a tie. You put the little clips here.
Man, the one that's
so funny.
I got a couple that really make me laugh. The first one that really got me was Homer's handwriting when like he's like, hey, this little piece. The Skinner's like, man, this little piece of shit. This little piece of shit. Forged ass note that Bart sent, and then Homer hands over the check, and it's the same shitty ass handwriting.
It's and he's so just like, good.
Okay. I like that one. I like when. Well, first of all, I really like what Homer and Bart go through in this episode. I love that the reason Bart cares isn't because he wants people to think that he's smart, is because he doesn't want his dad not to be proud of him.
Totally.
Which I really appreciate. And I feel like if this was done later, I feel like the resolution would have been sweeter, because really it was just Homer just kind of getting really fucking mad.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, so one of the jokes is they when he sends them off to school, Homer gives him a kiss, and then Bart says, "You kissed me." I was like, I'm your dad. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. One of them I loved is, so obviously Bart goes to school. It's a totally foreign environment to him, and all the kids are kind of bullying him in a nerdy way. But when they introduce themselves, they're doing all these like, which granted, like this was over the top. I don't think there's any school where kids are talking in palindromes. You know what I mean?
They was blowing my shit, bro. I couldn't do it. That's why I wrote, bro, my next note is everybody in this class is so fucking lame.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
All of those kids are fucking, they're fucking arguing like, oh, free will is an illusion. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
But after the like whole palindrome thing where they're just like talking in palindromes, or there was another one where like they're mixing up letters or words.
It was like they were doing backwards. So one of the kids was doing.
Well, it wasn't just backwards though. It was like
it was like
palindrome is same backwards and forwards, and then there was one that was like
it was like Latin, right?
Yeah,
wasn't one of the kids
there's one where I don't remember the word, but it's where the letters are mixed up, right? Or no, he's talking phonetically backwards, and then one was palindromes. That's what it was. But and then when Homer comes in to say like, "How's the first day, kid?" and he goes, "Os. That's backwards for so." That's such a good kid. Such a good bit. But this is another one that has like so much heart. Granted, I think you're right. I think you're right about the end. The end is angry dad versus getting a good sweet ending, because you have the opportunity for the sweet ending. Like it's got the sweet ending, and then they just move it one step further into comedic Homer angry. But there's 3 parts in this that I think are just excellent from a heart standpoint. One is I like when they go to the opera and they're just all
I wrote that too.
Gagging on it together. It's so cute. It's like, and even Lisa.
I love that Lisa's on it, bro. I love that Lisa's on it, bro. That's what seals it for me.
And then it's not a comedic scene in any way. I love them playing baseball, them throwing the baseball. It's just them, like, because you get the sense that Homer hasn't done with this with Bart, and Bart has felt like in fear, and like he's finally proud of him, and so they're out and they're sharing time together, and they're just actually spending time together. And I like that they don't play it for any jokes, like it's just them bonding, and that works so well for me. And then the final sequence before Homer gets angry, when Bart's final speech is great, where he's just like, I lied about this. I'm not a genius, but I think if this could bring us together, then it couldn't be bad. And like, I love the sentiment behind that. I think that's right. Like, I do too. It showed that they can be a loving, bonding father and son in ways that don't have anything to do with his intelligence, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's good shit, man. Bart the Genius. Great. It's a great episode.
Good shit. Only have two more things.
Yeah.
I've always loved you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, I suppose that is a paradox.
I love that he says that's a paradox. That lets me know that Bart understands what a paradox is. He just couldn't think of one.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And the way the plot resolves itself is so brilliant when Bart is like he pulls that undercover thing, and then he goes, I can't fucking do this. And he flips it over and he confesses, and he hands it to the dude, and he looks at it and he says, misspelled confession. And then it just cuts. It's just so funny. That's the best way to end that.
It's such a funny gag. And then also, like, I like that it just, like, he had an opportunity to try and keep the charade going, and he just realized, like, I can't. Like, he just, like, I'm too exhausted lying by doing this. Like, yeah. But even, like, admittedly, like, kind of a smart move for him to be like, what if I did an experiment and studied the regular dumb kids? Like, pretty smart for Bart. Pretty smart.
Yeah. I love that. But that's another... Bart is just a normal kid. He's not, like, cartoonishly dumb.
Right.
Like, he's just, like, a normal kid. You know what I mean? And so I really appreciate that too, about the way they told this story, because it would be very, very easy for Bart just like not even know simple math when he shows up. You know what I mean? And like, and for him to just kind of like, I don't know, just like start guessing cartoon characters as answers or something, you know, something like that. You know what I mean? I feel like it's really the really easy way to go about it. But it's like,
for sure.
Nah, he's not dumb. He's just out of his element, you know?
Exactly. Which once we get to season 2, like, truly one of the best episodes of the whole show is the first episode of season 2. Man. I'm so excited to talk about that. Dude, excited.
The way they animate him crying, I have never seen done before. I've never seen that shit. Breaks my heart. I'll make fun of it in my videos sometimes because I play that clip a lot.
Yeah.
But it breaks my fucking heart in context. It's so sad.
Agreed.
Can't wait.
All right, let's move on. Should we move on to Homer's Odyssey?
Let's do Homer's Odyssey.
So this is meant to be the 3rd episode. We're pretty much on track, other than that first episode comes last now, and they obviously the Christmas special comes later. But Homer's Odyssey is another heavy one. Homer loses his job. Heaviest. Probably heaviest.
Arguably heaviest.
It's nuts. But there's some really good gags. Like, I think one of the first jokes in the episode is really funny. And it's and it's like Krabappel basically just chastising Bart and being like, we gotta like watch out for Bart. We don't want this to be like our visit to the state prison. And then Bart just says, they don't even really spell it out. Bart just says, Mrs. Krabappel, I didn't unlock that door. So like, the implication is that Bart let out some prisoners, which is pretty funny. This is the one and only Black Smithers appearance, right? One and only.
No.
I thought he.
Yeah, never mind. You're right.
I think so because I think in the next one,
he is white in the next one.
Yeah.
He is white in the next one.
Unless he appears in like Some Enchanted Evening, which I don't think he does.
No. So yeah, you are right. Black Splinters by accident. Me personally, yeah, but yeah, it was an animation mistake. There was this weird guy on TMZ one time that was like chasing Matt Groening down at a airport. He's like, "What? Smithers was black. I think you guys should have kept him black." He was like, "Nah, bro, it was a mistake." And it kind of made Matt Groening sound a little crazy, but no, bro, like
it's just it was just yeah.
In retrospect, having the most subservient character in the show being one of the only black ones would have been the worst move they could have possibly done.
Right.
So I am glad that Smithers is white.
And then you also have what are the cops' names? Eddie and Lou, right?
Oh yeah, Eddie's white.
yeah.
Oh, Lou. I'm sorry, Lou. Excuse me. Eddie is the white one. Lou is
and it's bizarre because it's like obviously the design is the same. It's such a trip. It's
so weird. I can get over blonde Barney, but like,
dude, I know blonde Barney and black hair Mo.
Black hair Mo. I kind of like black hair Mo.
I kind of did too, and it flips between because they both appear in Some Enchanted Evening. Which is the last of the season after they'd already fixed the colors in earlier episodes. So it kind of went back and forth. The other thing that I didn't think about until this one, because they showed Sherry and Terry's dad. He's black. And then also Sherry and Terry are the only characters who are like white in the show.
Man, what fucking video was that, bro? I don't remember. It was a couple videos ago. I made a joke about how I have this crack theory that Sherry and Terry are light-skinned black girls because they daddy black, and it was unproven. Like I want to say 5 to 6 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, but they showed their dad again, and he's white now. Well, yellow.
Oh, he is. Okay.
He's actually he's yellow.
He's yellow.
But they are still but they aren't they aren't even
also
pigmented.
They're not yellow.
Yeah, they're
almost albino.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
wild.
Yeah, bro. I remember it tripped me up when I first saw it as a kid. But you know one thing this episode made me realize that they don't do anymore, and I need them to do it again, is Bart and Otto are the fucking best. I love Bart and Otto.
Yeah. It's funny because Otto obviously he's made some bad life decisions. He's not meant to be a role model, but Bart looks up to him because he's so cool.
Yeah. Hey, Otto man.
Otto man. Bart dude.
Oh, come on, bro.
There's a great episode later where Bart just sneaks Otto into living with them, right? Yeah, the Otto Show.
It's a good title.
It is.
The Otto Show.
The Otto Show is great.
That was a good title.
Man, and
that's 3.
This title is good. Homer's Odyssey.
Because
Odyssey
that's a great title.
Yeah.
So look, right. So look, this would have Simpsons Roasting on the Open Fire, right? What obviously wasn't supposed to be the first one. And in the actual order, this episode would have foreshadowed that one. Because when Bart sees Otto, what does he say? "Oh, cool tattoo. I want a tattoo." And he gets a fucking tattoo.
You're right.
Yeah.
They actually had a few, we'll talk about it. I'll talk about it now because they set it up here. There's another joke that's in this one that is paid off later. And it's that when they get on the bus, Mrs. Krabappel is like, don't forget about the boy that stuck his arm out the window and lost his arm out the bus. And Bart's like, I was that boy.
Yeah,
then in Bart the General, they meet Herman, and he specifically says that's how he lost his arm.
He was that, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. That's so funny.
And they don't that doesn't feel like something they even do now, where it's a small just reference back to a few episodes prior. Everything kind of exists in its own world to a degree.
Yeah.
Pretty much after this, there's some things that call back, but that's such a small gag.
But for it to be shadowed is really what the only thing I could think of that is that is really foreshadowed within the same season is in Rosebud, Mr. Burns is too weak to pull a bear from Maggie, and he gets shot by her later. When it makes sense why he couldn't get the gun from or the candy
That's
from
true.
her, because
you
saw that he was too weak to pull a bear.
Well, I think you better drop it. God, I can't wait to talk about those.
Oh
God, I love The Simpsons. Oh man.
Cool animation detail that they don't do anymore, but I really like. Homer's neck is too big for his collar, and there's like this little lump of like neck fat. Yeah, I love that.
I like that. There's so many things, like obviously we've talked about this before, and how like now The Simpsons has and I guess Fox Animation in general has to be like they want everything to be super on model. That's what they're all about. But man, do I miss the off model stuff. I mean, granted it's crude in this season, but like it gives it so much personality.
It does. Absolutely.
And I really miss that. And I do think there's still cool things you can do with the modern animation style, but like it's animation. Why do we need it to look the same? You know what I mean? Like why does
yeah, especially Simpsons, you know, like with
they're already yellow.
Right. It's inherently more cartoony than everything else they got.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with Family Guy, it's like it's supposed to be like a fucking stage sitcom, right? So like that it just makes sense for it to you know, they just try to make it close to life or whatever. But like yeah, dude, and so really honestly, because now they've gotten way it's back to being really loose, really expressive, and it's like they characters like they move constantly throughout lines of dialogue. There's just been moments in newer episodes where I've just been like in awe of like just the way the characters are moving, the character acting or whatever. But there is like a patch. I want to say it's like it's honestly when they first go to HD, it's like season 20 to like 25, 27, something like that, where it's just kind of dead. Yeah, you know what I mean? And like
that's probably the era that I've watched the least of. So I'm getting there though. I'm almost done with season 13 right now on my watch through. So.
Oh, nice! You caught up
into
with
the
Jim's.
Al Jean era. Yeah, I know. I am. I'm like perfectly
Jim's.
caught up with Jim's. Yeah. Man.
That actually I was supposed to watch his top 10 of these.
I haven't watched his retro yet. I got to watch the 13 retro and the top 10. I'm excited.
I wanted to watch the season 1 one before we did this, but I forgot to.
Oh, smart. Yeah. That would have been smart. So this, like we said, heavy episode. Homer loses his job because he's trying to go see Bart as he's visiting the power plant. Mm-hmm. He crashes a cart, gets immediately fired, and then can't provide for his family, and just about kills himself. Real close to doing it.
I think that Simpsons. I think that Simpson's about to kill himself. Or he's just walking his boulder.
He's walking his boulder. But that's also the funniest gag, is that he fucking ties the boulder to himself and then walks. Walks to the bridge. That's just that's funny to me. And then like I like it. It works though, because he goes to do it. The family rushes to stop him. They almost get hit by a car, and and it kind of gives him his will to live. It's just like, I need to protect my family, even if I can't provide for them. Right. He's like that. You guys could have gotten killed. I need to put a stop sign here. You know what I mean? And then he kind of gets caught up in this. I think that part of this episode that it all tracks, but is least interesting to me is Homer becoming the like town safety guy. You know what I mean? It all kind of moves along in a way that makes sense to me, but I'm more interested in the earlier stuff. And
likewise,
yeah,
I'm not like, you know, like it's practically my note too. That's what's really funny about it, is that like I said that, yeah, like I feel like all of the plot does flow really well, and it goes places that once it establishes itself, you feel like it would go. But I do feel like the sign stuff is like, I'm like, man, this is, even for like, And just like, you know, I know this isn't like completely the show that it becomes or whatever, but it's just still kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not really too big of a fan of the of all the stuff after he realizes that he has to put the stop sign there, which is a healthy chunk of the episode. I like
the end when he's talking to Burns and they're figuring all that shit out, and he gives the speech at the end. That's when it like all comes together for me. But yeah, it's like the whole process of him like finding his will to live in like unnecessary signs.
yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but not, you know, not what I'm most interested in. But it is it is another example though of like this season being about real issues, not about like Homer not being able to provide for his family. Once again, is not a comedic premise. That is a real heavy premise.
It's rough.
Yeah,
especially for them to do it so early on.
The joke that I like most in this episode that I always think about, which I think I've said to you recently, is after he gets the stop sign put in and he succeeds, and he's trying to say that he's gonna keep trying to help the neighborhood in the same way, and he says, if they think I'm gonna stop at that stop sign, they're sadly mistaken. which is just good wordplay for early seasons.
That's really good.
All right, should we move on to 104?
There's one small animation thing too that I really like. It's really inconsequential, but I was like, oh, nobody's ever done that before. When Homer and Marge are in bed, they're laying in bed in the dark, and then Marge turns the light on, and they're squinting because they were just in the dark and the light just turned on. So like,
right,
they're like, I thought that was cool. I've never seen a cartoon do that before.
Yeah, especially because so often, especially even in this show, they do the thing where the whites of the eyes are visible through the dark, which I think is awesome animation wise. But yeah, obviously there's no reality in there. Okay, so let's move on to 104, No Disgrace Like Home, which is such an interesting episode.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones.
It's a great episode, but it's also one that there's like truly almost no other episode like this one, I would say. So one thing I will say, that I thought about later, is that this is a place where the continuity of the season arguably messes up a tad, and it's because they go see Marvin Monroe, but then later, and then in Some Enchanted Evening, she calls Marvin Monroe to get advice, and I don't think she would have done that after this.
No
episode.
way. Actually, I'll take it a step even further. Right? Why the fuck is Martin? And a couple episodes later in Call of the Simpsons, Marvin Monroe is one of the people studying Homer. He knows him.
That's a good point. It's not
like he would have forgot him, because he literally fucked the whole therapy spot up.
You're right.
So like he would have remembered him.
It is funny how Marvin Monroe was like a big character in this season. He's three episodes, heavily featured character, and they don't ever. Yeah. They don't like he's a character who they stop using immediately.
They kill him off screen.
Kill him. Yeah. They reveal that he's dead in one of those clip, one of the clip shows, right? Or was it the 138th episode spectacular?
It was that one. Yeah.
I remember that pretty.
I heard. I forget which one of them does the voice, but I heard that one of the reasons was just that the voice they gave him, the guy who did it was just like, oh, I didn't realize how like horrible this is on my throat. I don't know if I can keep doing this guy.
Poor guy. That's rough.
Mm-hmm. It was one of the main cast members. I forget who it is, but yeah, they were just like, all right, we might as well call him.
Let me think. Who would that have been? I bet it was Harry Shearer. That feels like a Harry Shearer voice to me. Although it could have been Azaria. So obviously the big thing about this episode that makes it feel different than everything else is like the crux of this episode is how Homer is embarrassed by everyone in his family.
Mm-hmm.
Homer is ashamed of his family,
right?
Which this, like, if you told someone who had seen, you know, a number of other episodes of the show that this was the premise of an episode, they'd be like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. But it's still, though, it all comes together in I think a great way. I love everything at the opening, like, picnic or whatever, the like power plant picnic. Even though it feels weird because of how we come to know the characters later, but like Bart is very much being Bart. He's trying to win the sack race, and then Homer stopping him. I like Marge getting drunk and having like a musical sequence.
Yeah, I think
it's so good.
I think Bart and Maggie are the two that are in character this whole episode.
Totally.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, for the world that this episode creates, it still kind of feels natural. And that's why I think I'm fascinated by it. I think that's why it's one of my favorites. Because one of my favorites in like the whole show. Because it's just
nice.
It's just so like, it's just really, really interesting. Like, especially if you just kind of knew the show for years.
Right.
And like just kind of seeing these characters like this. And I really love the sequence where Homer sees like this really nice family at the picnic, and he's like, "All right, now we could go back to normal." And the guy's like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, and he goes in the car, and like his kids are like opening the door for each other, and like they're singing fucking Bingo like while they're driving down the street, and then like the lights from heaven come down, you know what I mean? And he turns and he just has like the fucking family from hell. I love that entire sequence. I think it's so great.
I do too. I was going to bring that sequence up in particular, and I fucking love the design of like the Demon Simpsons. They look so really cool. Funny. It's another example of like me wishing that the show would do less on model stuff, because it's like you still see those characters in those models, but they are off model. Like, they're super different. Like, I feel like if they did something like that now, the shapes of their heads would be exactly the same, and they would just give them demon features. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
It's I love how it looks.
I love it. It's so good, and I love that the family that is so nice in this episode can be seen at Marvin Monroe's therapy spot when they go to sign up. They're just sitting there and they're all mad as fuck.
It was the family from the beginning that like drove into heaven in Homer's vision, or was it a different one?
If it's not them, then it's the family.
One in one of the windows.
Nah, I think if it's not them, I think it's the family from the ad they watch.
Oh, nice.
But one of the families that's supposed to be like the picture perfect nice one is there, and they're really upset. And I think that's really funny. And I love that at the end of the episode, the Old MacDonald, it comes back as a motif when they're like walking off.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I think that shit is so good.
I just love that the solution in this episode is that their dysfunction brings them together. Like they're it's so funny to me that they get together, they're doing this like shock therapy, which is crazy in general. Like the shock therapy is nuts. But
it's nuts, but that is also like one of the greatest sequences in the whole show. Because it's so memorable, like that.
100%.
Yeah.
One of the most memorable sequences in the season for sure. It's so memorable. But like I love that. Like Homer's so mad. He feels like he doesn't have like his family. He's disappointed in his family, and then their dysfunction rewards them.
Yeah.
Because not only do they come together, but because they weren't fixed. They get twice the money that they put into it. And so it's
if we could back up a little bit, the way they get there is because they pawn the TV, and then Marge says, "Well, Homer, we could just pawn my engagement ring." And he says, "We need $150." And I was like, he's implying that Marge's engagement ring isn't worth $150.
That's so funny. That's such a good bit. One other random thing I wrote down is that the design of the police dog in this is crazy.
It is. Yeah. Oh man, that's such a specific thing to write down, but I know exactly what you're talking about because it is a crazy looking dog.
It is. Yeah, it's like, I mean, granted, like Santa's Little Helper is a weird looking dog too. He's supposed to be a greyhound. He doesn't really look like a greyhound, but so theoretically, this police dog's supposed to be a German Shepherd, but. And I guess if I look at Santa's Little Helper next to a greyhound, I see how this dog got there from German Shepherd. You know,
I don't know, man.
But it's a weird looking dog.
Them bears and Call of the Simpsons look
like bears.
Yeah, they look real season 5-ish. They could have figured it out. Oh, when they're at the therapy, this is fucking nuts. I'm not even gonna lie. Like this is. I get it's kind of funny because of how it's animated, but it is kind of rough. When they're at the therapy, and I don't remember what Bart says. Bart says something. Homer says that does it, and he picks up a fucking lamp. He's about to bash Bart's head in with a lamp, and I was like, "Whoa, why is he doing that?" And I do love that. Yeah, even though Homer is the one that wakes up and says, I'm ashamed of my family, why are we like this? When they get there, everybody's like, no, my nigga, you the problem. Like, everybody, right. Like, when he's like, wow,
that's like, true.
Why do you guys act this way? Yeah.
that is very true. Is like the whole episode is framed as though Homer is disappointed in his family, and then once they finally go to find out what the problem is very apparently Homer.
Yeah, it's
you. that's where it lines up. That's where it lines up with the rest of the show.
Right. Absolutely.
Man, that's good stuff. You got anything else about this one?
Looks like I got one. Oh, two things. I like how it starts with Bart and Lisa arguing. Homer asks what they're arguing about and says, we're arguing who loves you more. And Homer lets them go, which I think is really funny. And then when he finds out that they're like, you love him more. No, you love him more.
You love him more.
Yeah.
That's a great bit. That's so
a great
funny.
bit. I love that one. And I love, again, when Homer is trying to kiss up to Mr. Burns and he tells Bart to kiss him. And Bart says, kiss you? But Dad, I'm your kid.
Oh fuck! I love this season, man. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good. Underrated. This whole fucking season is underrated.
Yeah, we gotta stop acting like the show starts at season 2. It doesn't.
Dude, I mean, I do understand because it does feel there is like a difference. There's a difference between them, but like I just really like the reason I love season 1 isn't the reason I love the seasons 2 through 8 to like the rest of my favorite stuff, you know,
right.
Like it's different, but also in the same way, the reason I loved Pixelated and Afraid in this newest season, one of my favorite episodes in years, like 20 years.
Yeah.
is not the same reason I love episodes in seasons 1 or seasons 2 or up through 8, you know, or through any of it. Like it's different. Like they've got different vibes. They've all got, there's the DNA is still there. There's still things.
Yeah.
There's still things about them, but yeah.
I do think there's an episode in this season where the entire show becomes whole. And we'll get to it. We'll get to it eventually. But there was one episode where I'm like, this is when, because the show definitely starts.
I think I know which one. I'm going to guess.
The show definitely starts with the family in the first one, but the one I'm thinking about is when the show.
Is it Krusty Gets Busted?
No.
Oh.
It's before that. There's an episode before that where it's like, this is when the show becomes The Simpsons for real. Like, honestly. We'll get there. I'll let you know which one it is.
Hell yeah.
Keep the audience listening. You know what I mean? It's probably going to be in part 2 since we're splitting this. So
that's right. This is already we've already been talking for an hour and a half between our cold open and our first 4 episodes.
Jeez.
This was always the danger of us covering The Simpsons.
Yeah. Oh man, what's gonna happen when we get to like the seasons with like 26?
Dude, this is the shortest season.
Oh man.
we're gonna have to split. We might have to split them into 4 parts. We might have to cover a season a month when we get to the 22 episode season. 25. There are 25 episode seasons.
Jeez.
Okay.
It's rough.
Let's move on to 105. Bart the General.
Short intro.
Short intro. So this starts out. Lisa's bringing the cupcakes in. I really like this intro because it shows the familial conflict. Bart wants the cupcake, can't get the cupcake for her class, and even though she drops it on the floor and then gives it to him, she still gives it to him. But then I love that the inciting incident of this episode is that Bart is trying to protect Lisa. That Bart sees this kid picking on Lisa, and Bart immediately is like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like immediately just runs over and protects his sister.
And I love that it still felt like something he would do.
Yes.
I love that, like, after all these years, that part isn't lost on him. I don't think he would let anybody, like, really fuck with Lisa that way, especially not some dude.
Agreed. Completely agreed. And this introduced Nelson, or is the first obviously like real use of him?
They don't really. They don't really go to the school. I mean, they go to the school in Bart the Genius, but like that's just kind of Milhouse, Richard and Lewis.
True.
Martin.
I don't know if he was even in the background or what.
Yeah, I don't
know. But this is the one where with the Herman joke, the callback, which is funny, and then the whole premise is like Bart needing to figure out how to face his bully, which is a very so a lot of these premises are pretty standard premises. A kid having to face his bully. That's what this is. You know what I mean? Like that's it. Right. How they approach it is, I guess, what makes it unique. And then I love Homer's bad advice. It's like get him in the family jewels. But I especially love when Bart finally actually faces Nelson with that advice, and he tries to fight him. And he first he sees Homer appears next to him, and he's like, "Remember what I said, kid? Family jewels." And then he tries to fight him, and he can't get anywhere. And then he appears again, and he looks over, and the imaginary Homer just goes, he goes, "I don't know." And then he gets his ass kicked. I thought that was really good. And then it's kind of an interesting episode overall. It's like it's like Bart. It's kind of an episode about power in numbers, standing up to the oppressor. Right. He unionizes the kids.
Yeah. I love that. This is like, what did I write this? Oh yeah, here it is, right here. I wrote that. First of all, I love Grandpa Abe. I love Abe angrily writing that letter to television, and he's like, I don't want to hear these are the words that I don't want to fucking hear on TV anymore. Bra, horny, family jewel.
It's so funny.
But I love that this version of Abe is more angry and competent than stupid, which is really a reflection of Homer in these earlier ones, because that's how he is too. Homer isn't necessarily dumb. He's not the smartest guy, but he's not necessarily dumb. He's just kind of really mad.
Right.
And that's that. And Abe being like that shows where he got it from. I love that they give Abe something like this to do really early on, which kind of sets the stage for stuff like the Hellfish stuff and everything like
that.
Years later. Oh, dude, and Bart crying when he's in the bathtub.
In the bathtub, dude. I was gonna bring that up.
So fucking sad.
It is, man. It is. I was gonna bring that up specifically. It's and that's. I mean, granted, the show, we talked about Bart Gets an F earlier, and how that doesn't shy away from the emotion of him feeling like he failed. But I love that early Simpsons really dwells in some of that emotion, and I think, granted, the show doesn't abandon that, but it feels very it feels very like a very major aspect of the season. Yeah. And I love that. I love that a lot. I'm a big fan of the training montage. There's some cool stuff in the training montage. I like the creativity of them, like what kind of training they do. Also, that sunset shot where you just see the silhouettes climbing up and down the.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I like that shot a lot. And then, yeah, it's like, and then I guess I also like the solution is funny. It's like signing a peace treaty. It's like a real war. Like it's like it was a real war.
Yeah. And I love it ending with everybody still getting cupcakes. Mars just kind of comes in with more cupcakes, and everybody eats, and everybody's fine.
Yeah, I do, and I do like the solution is cupcake based.
Right before all of that, there's that like shot of that kid kissing Lisa. That shit is crazy.
That is crazy.
That shit is crazy.
Was that supposed to be? You know what? Hold on.
So right, it's definitely a reference.
Yeah, I think it's There's a. Was it a sailor or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. It's a reference. It's a reference to an old photo that was after one of the. Let me see. Let's see. World War Sailor kiss. I think it was after a certain war. There was like an iconic photo of after they've returned home of a sailor kissing his bride or whatever. Yeah, it's specifically a reference to that photo. It's framed exactly the same way. It came to symbolize the end of World War II. So yeah, obviously this is very war centric, which is actually why the tag is so fucking good in this. Where Bart's just like, it's very funny to be like, this was about war, but war is serious and war is bad, except for, and then you just list all of the wars America's started. It's pretty funny. And then also, and the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
It's great. This is a fun one. This is not one of my favorite ones, but there's really good stuff in this one.
Right.
Oh, you know what? We forgot to talk about another crazy animation sequence in this one when Bart daydreams after he's supposed to fight Nelson,
right?
And he's waiting for the day to end. Another really cool, interestingly animated sequence. They did those like 3 or 4 times in this season.
This is the one with his funeral, cool. Right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Let's see, there was one. Well, okay, when Nelson, there's that shot of like just Bart's face from the front, and like Nelson is just like punching him in the face. Yeah. Nelson is punching him so ridiculously slow. I was screaming at him. I'm like, Bart, put your fucking guard up. Like, dude, like, block, like, you know what I mean? Like, do something. They just didn't do it. And, I guess the only other thing I have is that the animation in this one in particular, there must have been like a lot of retakes on just like re-recording lines or like adjusting lines of dialogue or whatever, because like the lip sync is like awful than the motherfucker in this one, bro. Like,
I noticed that in a few episodes too. And Bart the Genius, which obviously was the second one they animated, so it makes a lot of sense that they would have to do a lot of fixes in that. But I noticed a lot of stuff with some of the class kids, and like the teacher at his new school had like it looked like they were even looping some of the same animation to fix some shit, you know. And so like I feel like. I think the reason that they put, granted, Simpsons Roasting on Open Fire makes sense for the time of year and it's a good pilot, but also like it was the 8th episode they animated. They probably got their shit together by episode 8. Right, you know what I mean? They looked at it and they're like, "This looks good. Let's use this." Yeah, good one. Good episode.
Let's go to the GOAT.
My favorite, man. Moaning Lisa. Spoilers for my ranking list. Moaning Lisa is my favorite this season, and it's one of my favorites of the whole show. I don't know. This one just has such a unique tone. There's no other episode in the whole show that feels like Moaning Lisa, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah. I agree.
But one thing we haven't talked about yet that I want to talk about because of this opening music cue in this song, which is insanely sad. It's like the most intensely sad music cue. But season 1 of The Simpsons was not scored by Alf Clausen, who would who would end up doing the show from seasons like 2 to 27 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about, because I think what ended up happening was, I think he ended up leaving when they tried to do that Great Gatsby thing with hip hop that I talked about in that video.
Oh yeah,
it was because they wanted to experiment with different types of music, but he was kind of like an old head that didn't really like dabble in all the other stuff, and they were like, bro, we trying to go somewhere with this show, and you're not trying to go there with us, so we might have to let you go. It was kind of rough.
It's a bummer, but you know, show's old. People on the show getting old. I'm not, you know, I love a lot of those Simpsons writers, but I'm glad they get young people in the writers' room too.
Mm-hmm.
Real glad.
Absolutely.
So the composer in season 1 was not Alf Clausen. It was a guy named Richard Gibbs. And actually, this is pretty interesting. I just was looking. I didn't really know much about Richard Gibbs until I just started looking into him here. I didn't even realize that season 1 was scored by someone different, but it makes sense because the music is very different in season 1. But Richard Gibbs was the keyboard player for Oingo Boingo. Do you know who Oingo Boingo is?
I do.
Oingo Boingo is Danny Elfman's band, who did the theme song for The Simpsons and is probably still capitalizing on it to this day. I'm really curious if that was I'm curious how that hookup happened. Was it, we got Richard Gibbs, hey, can you get Danny to do the theme song? Or like, hey, we got Danny Elfman to do the theme song, but he doesn't want to do the score, so he gave us his keyboard player.
Right, maybe the way I see it is like, maybe he just kind of was like, hey man, they want me to do this cartoon, but I don't really feel like it. You want to do it? And he's like, okay.
Personally, I like the music in season 1, but I do like, it's different. It's very different, and I feel like it's not as iconic, but I like it. I don't know, but maybe it just kind of lends to the thing we've been talking about this whole time about how season 1 just, like, though you see the DNA of The Simpsons and how it evolved in there, it does feel different. Like there's a different feeling to a lot of it. And yeah, music is a thing that can even subconsciously make you feel that. Like sometimes you don't even think about how different the music is. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even really, because I think back to like certain like music cues that I remember from the season. It's not like stark, you know what I mean? It's not like a big ass difference, at least not to me. Maybe I gotta rewatch with that new context instead of somebody else.
This opening cue does feel different to me. This is the one that I thought of that I'm like, there's no other cue like this in all of The Simpsons. It just starts out so sad.
Man, the first shot is just Lisa's face in the mirror, and she's just so sad.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Like, I just appreciate them starting off like, oh yeah, you ready for your adult animated primetime comedy? Depression is your opening shot. Did you notice that the toothpaste is called Glum? Glum toothpaste.
No, that's oh, I didn't. I think this is the only chalkboard gag I wrote down.
What was it?
Season. It was I will not instigate revolution. And I thought that was really funny.
That is good. Yeah, shit. We should. I guess we haven't been talking about couch gags or chalkboard gags.
Well, I brought up my favorite couch.
Your
gag,
favorite couch gag, true.
Bart falling down.
Yeah, Bart falling down. The first
really
couch gag. The literal first couch gag.
There's another one. So this season, which is something that I just completely forgot, because there's no way they would do it today. But for a while, they did recycle these like couch gags. Like they would like make like 3, 4, 5, and then like, recycle them. And man, there's one of these couch gags that's literally just them sitting down, and I think that's super fucking funny. They just sit down.
It's especially like, it is funny, especially now, but that would be even funnier if they did it like in season 33, where everyone's just waiting, like, what is it? Oh.
There was once where, like, I don't remember when it was, but I have a feeling you might not have seen it just because it was like mid Al Jean.
Mid stuff. Yeah.
It was.
I'll get there. I'm getting there. I'm on season 14 now. Got there last night.
Nice. I think one of my favorite ones is in season 4. When is the one with Mo and Maggie? Because I fucking love that one.
I have seen that one. I haven't gotten to that one in this watch through yet. I don't think.
I think it might be 14.
I think you might be right. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I still remember. It's the last one of 14. Mo Baby Blues.
Mo Baby Blues.
I remember this specifically. Actually, we're still in the era where I was like pretty familiar. Like I just watched How I Spent My Strummer Vacation. I remember watching that the day it came out vividly. Like we're still in the part of the show. I'm still in the part of the show where I'm like pretty familiar. I maybe don't know every episode, but I was watching these when they were coming out. Gotcha. I think seasons 15 and 16 are when I fall off heavy.
Okay. That's crazy because I think like 16, 17 is when I like picked up. So
it's just the show's been on so long. It's like it just has these cycles with people in different ways. It's crazy.
Right.
I remember even though I had fallen off, I still got really stoked when the Simpsons movie came out. I remember seeing that trailer for the first time, and even though I hadn't really been watching regularly, I was like, oh fuck yes, finally we got it. And I remember loving it too. I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is better than the show is right now. Like this is so good.
Man, I heard that a lot when that movie came out. I heard a lot of people say that, and when I was I was like 10, so I was like, what's wrong with the show? You know what I mean? I was like, I don't know, I'm just feel like I'm watching the Simpsons.
I feel like we're gonna get to that. We're starting to get to that time. It's so interesting where like the show has been on so long that so many people have grown up with it, but in different eras. So they're attached to different styles and versions of the show. So you're going to have people who are like, oh yeah, the golden years, season 16 through 24. and you'll have some people who are like, what?
Bro, I seen it. That's how I knew like this is like a different show than like everything else is. I watched a clip from like season 16, and then somebody commented, this is back when the show was good. I'm like, no, this is when people hated it.
Yeah, dude,
like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't see.
It's so funny. Fandom
that leads me to believe that The Simpsons might not have ever gotten bad. It just might have gotten different.
It definitely got different. Yeah. I think that is the main thing. And yeah, I mean, obviously, it's all subjective. Like, it's ultimately subjective, and I'm watching through the beginning of the Al Jean era, which like in my recollection is when the show really started going downhill. But there's stuff I'm really enjoying still. Although I will say I think How I Spent My Strummer Vacation is actually a holdover from Scully, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember loving that episode when it aired. But it was also, I think I was just the novelty of it being like this fun rock and roll with all of these cool cameos like Tom Petty and Elvis Costello and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and all that shit, and Lenny Kravitz. It's got everyone in it. But watching it last night, I was kind of like, oh, it's fine. it's not the masterpiece I remembered it. The one I'm on is Bart versus Lisa versus the third grade, which I also remember is a really fun premise. It's the one where Lisa moves up to third grade and Bart gets moved back to third grade, which is a great Simpsons premise, I think. Yeah. I gotta sit down and properly watch it, but I'm really eager to start getting into the stuff that I am super unfamiliar with. Because I'm about to have a solid like 10 seasons of like I ain't seen Simpsons. This. Yeah. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I guess we got on it because we were talking about couch gags, but
it's true.
But yeah, there's one from like the Gene era where they all sit down and then nothing happens, and then Lisa says, "What? We can't just like sit on the couch and nothing happens." And then I think like an arrow comes and like shoots Homer in the arm.
Nice.
And I think that might be the end of it. But yeah, I don't know. I still think it would be. I do think it's funny that there's one where they just sit down. I remember it vividly because on the commentaries for these episodes, there was whenever that popped up. I don't remember which episode it is. I wrote it down, so we'll get to it. But whenever that popped up, like everybody on the commentary went, "Oh, that's it." Yeah, they just sit down.
That's so funny. Man, I think I mentioned this before, but I kind of like how this latest season they're just like, let's just get right into it, and they just do The Simpsons, and then it goes right into the episode. I just rewatched Pixelated and Afraid, and it's like black and white because it goes into a black and white movie that Lisa's watching, and I don't know, it's just like, it's cool. I think we've moved past the need for all the gags. We don't need them. We just
I've always thought that was a good sign because they usually use a short intro when they don't have anything to cut.
Totally.
Like, they gotta keep everything in to keep the plot and everything. You know?
Part of me wonders if they're saving money paying Danny Elfman.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either. Oh man. Shit. We got a lot of Simpsons to cover on this show, man. We're gonna die before we finish this show.
Yeah, bro. It's no
Especially because we got other shows to watch too.
Yeah. Maybe if this was a Simpsons podcast, maybe, but it's not.
Yeah.
So, even though we
has anyone ever done a Simpsons podcast? Just kidding.
That's an idea.
Oh man, there's like a billion Simpsons podcasts. Just some good ones out there. Good ones.
Good.
Okay, let's. Oh shit! I just realized I'm about to get into the digital ink era of The Simpsons.
14
I'm
is when
3 episodes away. 3 episodes away. It's like The Great Louse Detective is the first one. That's it's the 6th of the season. Man, is it gonna feel immediately different?
I don't know.
It's gonna be weird.
You know what? I think you know what the funniest thing about The Simpsons to me is that before that one, right? They just kind of like no explanation. They would just randomly try digital animation. Cause Radioactive Man, which is season 7, is completely digital. And
really?
Yeah, it's digital ink and paint. Radioactive Man is digital ink and paint. I listened to the commentary to see if they'd address it. And literally it was just a passing like, oh yeah, we just kind of did this one. We kind of just like traced this one like a Butterfinger commercial. Like I think they said something like that. And I was bizarre. Like, well, why is it like this? So it's that one and Tennis the Menace is digital.
Oh,
digital
I remember that one.
Paint. Yeah.
That's bizarre. That's so strange. They were just experimenting with it, trying it out.
I don't know, but yeah, one thing you'll notice, because it's something I picked up on too. One thing you'll notice when you get to those early digital ones is they very quickly realize what they can do, and then there's just a lot of shots with like shadows for no reason. You know what I mean? Like they're just kind of like, fuck it, yo.
Yeah, why not? Let's just do it. Let's go for it.
I respect it.
All right, well, let's talk about Moaning Lisa, which is one of my faves. My first ever, well, I guess not my first Simpsons video. My first Simpsons like analysis. I did a Simpsons video with Simpsons Theory. Shout out to Lydia, where we did like Lost Simpsons episodes, talked about all the unproduced scripts that they've written.
Right, because that's when I told you about Michael Jackson's relationship with Prince.
Yes,
because you guys talked about when they tried to get Prince on. And then they were
Prince
like,
episode would have been so good.
It would have been
funny.
But like because they wanted. So for people that don't know, they tried to do the Michael Jackson episode again, but they wanted the guy to think he was Prince instead this time, and that was the joke. And Prince read it and was like, "Oh, fuck out of here!" And it's just like,
no, thank you.
It just didn't do it. And when I heard that, just like I told Steve about it too, my friend Steve, I told Steve about it. And Steve was like, why the fuck would they do that? And that was my initial thought too. Like, I was like, oh, dude, you shouldn't have did that. Like, there's no way Prince would have went for that.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's kind of a, it's like, it's a long shot worth it if it hits. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like who else do you fit in there who's like a super eccentric musician to do that same premise of, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. The excerpts from that script are so funny. I don't think it was a Conan script, but I think Conan helped conceptualize it and put it together and wrote a lot of jokes for it. And it hurts me. It hurts my soul that we like that a Conan produced episode
fell within the cracks.
Just fell through the cracks. Exactly. But anyways, Moaning Lisa, speaking of musicians, is the first Bleeding Gums Murphy episode. Yeah. Funny enough, just in a few days, in like a week or two, we're going to apparently get our third Bleeding Gums Murphy episode, even though he dies in Round Springfield. Spoilers for season 6. But it's I'm very excited given how sentimental and emotional and heartfelt this season has been. I almost feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment with how excited I am about them doing a Bleeding Gums centric episode. But it seems to be about Lisa and connecting with Bleeding Gums' son. So I'm curious. I'm like, does she still have his saxophone? He gave it to her. We never seen it. Man, there's a lot of stuff they could do. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But this episode, he's in it and they connect, but he's not like the focus of the episode. It's really all about Lisa's depression. It's just about Lisa being sad. And I like how they portray it and the messages that come with it a lot. Because I'm sure as everyone can relate, like sad when you're depressed, everything just kind of sucks. You're just sad.
And one thing that on this watch that I really, really liked about it is that how realistic the entire family is towards how Lisa's feeling. Because you watch these like shows, right? And like a character would be really upset and they'll be going through something and they'll just have the most fucking supportive system. You know what I mean? And like, that's cool, but that doesn't always happen. Like that happens way less than usual. Nobody in that house knows what to say to Lisa. When Lisa sits on Homer's lap and she's like, I'm just wondering what's the point? Would everything be different if I didn't existed? And like, nobody knows what to say. They just kind of like, oh, look, Lisa on a horsey, yada, yada. And like, Marge doesn't know what to say. Marge just kind of changes the subject. You know what I mean? Like, nobody actually knows what to give her. And I just think that that's super realistic.
I agree. And it's interesting because it feels like they're all trying to be supportive, loving family members, but they're all trying to like distract and or fix the problem. Even though they don't really understand. Right. They don't really understand what the problem is. They just know she's sad and they're like, okay, how do we stop you from being sad? And the ultimate message of the episode is that like, sometimes we just have to work through being sad. Like you can't, you just find a quick fix for being sad all the time. Sometimes you really just have to feel yourself through it. And like, it's nice because even though they're all wrong in how they approach it, their hearts are they're all in the right place. Their hearts are all in the right place. It's like, nobody comes off badly in this episode, except for, I think in one moment, Marge, but she fixes it quickly.
But with Marge too, it's like they make sure that you understand like where it came from. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think that sequence is like, it feels like it's 20 to 30 years ahead of its time, because now I'm looking at all the media we're looking at in the last 10 years, especially now we're talking about it with all the stuff with Pixar, all the Pixar movies that are coming out. But also even just like shows like even Rick and Morty and BoJack especially are shows that are like putting a microscope on generational trauma. It's putting a microscope on these things that the experiences we go through when we're kids with our parents and how they shape how we cope with things, and then how we project those insecurities that we gain because of them onto kids, like, or at least these characters do onto their kids. Like in BoJack, you finally see how Beatrice's childhood was traumatizing and why she, because of that trauma, was terrible to BoJack. And it's not an excuse, but it is like an examination of that. In Rick and Morty, we see how, you know, Beth's got a lot of problems as a mother, and you kind of understand because she lost her mother, and or maybe she didn't lose her mother. I guess it still remains to be seen. We don't really know, depending on the multiverse. But like, obviously, she had a very neglectful father, and so I love, even though it's just a short sequence, we see Lisa as a kid. She's sad. Her mom says, "Smile," because that's how other people know I'm a good mom, is if you are smiling. And Lisa, and then and Marge internalizes that. And then when she sees Lisa sad, she's like, everyone, it makes it about her. Everyone's going to think I'm a bad mom if my kid is sad. Lisa, you have to smile because that's just the only way you have to do it. And then she immediately sees how negative that can be and how people can take advantage of someone who's not actually saying how they feel, who's just, and so I love the sequence when Marge U-turns and pulls Lisa into the car. It's so good. And then her final, just like her dialogue where she's just like, if you want to be sad, and we'll be here through it. You know, it's so good.
Let me do it smiling for the both of us.
Yeah.
It's so
good. And then I love that Lisa smiles because of it. And she's like, I told you didn't have to smile. It's like, well, now I feel like it. Now I feel like smiling. It's so good. It's so good. I fucking love this. I love this episode so much. And then just like the bleeding gums scene. I love the bleeding gums scene so much because
dude, I love how it looks.
It looks so good. Have you seen those screen grabs of the new one coming up? It feels like the color palette is similar. I love how that scene looks so much. I love
it. It's so expressive.
Yeah.
Like, the way those characters are moving and like the faces they're making, they wouldn't do that today, but
totally.
It looks fucking great. I love it.
I wonder if they're in the new one. I wonder if it's a recreation of what we saw in Moan and Lisa, or
I would love to see that.
Me too.
I would love that if they did that.
Because when they did Round Springfield, it was like 5 years later, and even though the animation looks different, they just showed footage from Moan and Lisa. Yeah. But you can't do that now. You can't do it when you're in HD. So, although if they could figure out a way, that would be kind of cool. But the other thing I love about that sequence is that like, is that Bleeding Gums, he doesn't know Lisa. They sit there and they play sax together, and he just like provides her an outlet to vent and just like talk about all the things that make her sad and upset. And he doesn't try to fix them. He doesn't try to say, oh, well, you don't have to worry about this or do this, or this is how you fix that. He just lets her feel her feelings. And that, I think, is obviously ultimately that's what the answer is in the episode. But it was like he was the only one in the episode who was just like, yeah, that's what the blues are. You got to feel the blues sometimes. You just got to feel them. And if you don't feel those things, we wouldn't have the blues, you know. Like we, man, love Moan and Lisa. You got anything else about this one?
Let's see. Oh well, we didn't talk about the Homer B plot. That I do think it's kind of funny that he just gets so mad that he can't win the game. Yeah,
it's really funny. It's a funny B plot that I feel like doesn't tie into the rest of it very well, and I of love this episode in spite of that.
I feel that. Yeah,
I like the subplot isolated. I wish it tied more into what was happening with the rest of the episode.
Right. And I did think I didn't necessarily like Marge unplugging the game when Homer was about to win. I was like, come on.
You know what's funny is I think that I didn't like it either. And I think it's comedically the move, but
it is.
But I also like it's interesting that kind of thing when video games are relatively new. Like I think that kind of like I'm gonna unplug your shit was just, I think it was more commonplace. Like I feel like you see that in sitcoms all the time. I feel like I remember my mom doing that to me when like she was just like, video games don't matter, you can pause it. And I'm like, well, I mean, what if I'm playing online, Mom? Just wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like why? It's and so
he was
as
mid,
a gamer,
like, round up punch. He was like he was rounding a punch up. He was like he's about to deck the shit out, Bart. And then
it was pretty funny. I like that he goes to the arcade to practice, and then also just like it really illustrates how differently video games were seen back then. When like the mom was like disgusted that this grown man was playing video games at the arcade.
Not only that, but she told her son to stop wasting his money, which is like, what does a kid spend their money on? You know what I mean? Like,
it's just funny how it was seen as like this worthless habit back then, but like it's such a huge part of culture now.
Yeah, now people make money by playing games.
Yeah, and no offense to my parents, but I have better hand-eye coordination than y'all will ever have because I played video games my whole life. So it is funny. It is funny how those things change. Like that was that, and even like when he goes, he's embarrassed that he's going to the arcade. He's like, I need to do some laundry. And the guy's like, yeah, okay. It's funny. It is funny how different that was written in the late 80s.
There's a really funny Homer line that I really like, and there's also a really funny Marge line. But when Homer's trying to figure out what's wrong with Lisa, and Marge is trying to explain to him that she's depressed, but he says, "Oh, I get it. This is some kind of underwear thing." I always thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
And when Marge picks Lisa up from bleeding gums, there's this super Marge ass line where she says, "It's nothing personal. I just fear the unknown. Fear the unfamiliar." Yeah.
Yes.
That's a super like Marge line. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And like that's, I mean, like if you see your 8-year-old daughter with a stranger on a bridge in the middle of the night, you're like, oh yeah, let's get your kid out of there.
Right. Absolutely. It's not a fool.
But she's so polite about it. She's like,
because it's such a Marge ass line, man. Marge is just like, it's nothing personal against you. I just fear the unfamiliar. And the song at the end, that's my last note. The song at the end is super fucking good when he takes Lisa's words and
I love I like them all grooving to it, and then Homer realizing the lyrics are about him.
My dad acts like he belongs in the zoo, and he's like, huh? The fuck?
It's so it's like, and that's such a unique ending to an episode. It's like, granted there's some jokes in there, but like it's mostly just like kind of dwelling on the musical aspect of the episode, and it's not really going out on a big comedic out. It's mostly just like oh, let's just have the family sit with each other and listen to the blues. Mm-hmm. That's it. Listen to some jazz. Yeah, good shit. Good shit. Love this episode. Love it. All right, let's move on to 107. Which we both have written the least amount of notes for, apparently. Call of the Simpsons.
Yeah,
so
this is the one where they just sit on the couch. Okay.
Oh, this is it. This is the just sit on the couch one. That's funny. I love how I like how this one sets up. Well, granted, we already saw it a little bit, but this one really establishes Homer's like envy towards Flanders. It's like it's his relationship towards Flanders is really, granted, like it kind of evolves into Homer being an asshole to him, but in this one it's mostly just like the perfect neighbor who it almost feels like at this point they didn't really even have that Flanders was like the religious nut. He's just the perfect neighbor. That's it.
Yeah, there's actually a joke here where Homer says that he gets some of Ned's mail and Ned only makes $27 more a week than Homer. And that led me to think, I don't think I know what Ned Flanders does for a living.
Well, okay, so where he had a job before he started the Leftorium, and I can't remember what it was, but he says it in that episode. In the Leftorium episode where he decides to start to open up the left-handed store, I think he says what job he's leaving in order to do that, but I don't remember what it is. They don't really, it's not a big plot point in the show. They don't really talk about it.
Right. And that's Flanders doesn't have the religious thing, and Homer doesn't hate him. He's just kind of like, damn, I wish I had that. But they still have like a normal conversation at the start of the episode. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like he's just like, oh, this is my neighbor, and I'm just kind of jealous because he got all this shit. Yeah, Homer acts like okay, you only make $27 more than me. How did you afford this? And then Flanders is like, credit. And he's like, oh shit, okay. And he just goes and does it.
Right.
But then it kind of, now it's kind of just, now it's Homer taking Flanders' kindness for his weakness. That's really what it evolved into.
Yes.
Now Ned is overly nice to everybody, and Homer understands that and uses that as a way to like take advantage of the neighborly aspect of it.
Yeah,
like, oh,
he borrows all his shit and never gives it back. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely evolves. And like I feel like that evolution is natural, especially when you're a show trying to find the best comedy you can in those relationships. So like, and what's funny, because obviously the term Flanderization comes from Flanders.
Right.
And I don't even think he's the best example of a Flanderized character. Like,
bro, I don't either. Like, I legitimately don't either. Like, okay, I don't know, man. I don't think that like religion becomes the only thing about him. You know what I mean?
It does become more and more of a focus.
It does become more and more of a focus, but like, he's still always just a good guy.
Yes.
You know 100%. What I mean? Like, that's really the crux of it, is that like they just make him more and more pleasant.
Right.
And now, you know, they play with it now, because now he's just kind of like sometimes he gets like annoyed now, and he like, sometimes they just kind of break that, you know what I mean? But
I would even make the argument that in comedy, Flanderization isn't always a bad thing either. Like, if you're, granted, it can make some things become tiresome, but like, if you're looking for if your show's goal is to be funny and you're looking for the funniest thing, and then you start to rely on that funniest thing, like, that's you doing what you're supposed to do. You're trying to to the best of your ability, make the show as funny as it can be.
Right.
And I understand how it doesn't always pay off, and sometimes it's like, okay, well, this character had other things that were interesting before too, you know. Like, it's like I talked about it a bit in my Futurama video with Bender. Bender was always so interesting because he was insecure, and a lot of the comedy stemmed from his insecurities about his existence. Right. And like wanting to be more than just this man-made robot. And that stuff still is present throughout, but like in the later seasons, it's, you know, jerk ass Bender. It's just jerk ass Bender. Like Bender just being like a bombastic, flamboyant, ridiculous ass. And that makes sense, because that is like the memorable aspect of Bender for so many people. It's like the aspect of Bender that is kind of the mascot of Futurama at this point. Right, like that's what it is. We're back, baby. That's what they fucking put on the thing.
Yeah. I think when stuff like that starts to lose people is when like they feel like the Flanderization gets in the way of I guess the nuance that the character had, right? When you emphasize all that stuff about Bender, you lose the existential stuff, right?
Yeah.
You lose, why do I exist? You know, like that whole thing that they play with for the first 4 years, where he's just trying to understand where he fits in. Now he just kind of doesn't really care about that.
Yeah.
They do that. Shout out to Nintendo. He just did Fairly Odd Parents. Perfect example of that.
Go check out Nintendo. Well, this is gonna be a month later, but check out Nintendo's Fairly Odd Parents retrospective.
That video is good, and I'm not just saying that because I helped edit it.
Nick makes great stuff constantly.
Nick is in my top 5 favorite people to watch. I'll just be completely honest. Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's blowing up too. It looks like it had like a slow day, but I think it looks like it's picking up. I'm happy because he hadn't put out a video for a while, so I'm stoked to see. That thing's gonna explode at some point here.
It has to.
It's got to.
No way.
But yeah, I think with Flanders, like, even though they definitely lean more and more and more into the religious stuff, I don't think the nuances of the character are lost. And I think they even actually add more nuances to him. And like, even though I don't love the decision they made later in the show to kill Maude, that really does take the character interesting
to different places. Yeah, they do use that to actually, because man, I watched a clip of the Maude funeral and shit, and oh man, is that shit bad. I don't like that shit, bro. Like, they treat her so bad. The speech they give her is so bad. And I was like, man, That's not cool. But
and
like,
then they pair him with Edna, and then Marsha Wallace dies, which is
right, which is just like, that's not their fault, but it is just like, fuck this poor man. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. He's kind of become a really tragic character in a lot of ways.
And I do think that that's really, really interesting. That the character that has the strongest relationship with God is the one that's tested the most.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's the one that constantly has his belief like tested, because he
arguably the most reasons to question God.
Right. Because he's the best person, but shit just keeps happening to him. You know what I mean?
There's like whole episodes about that. Hurricane Nettie, or no, is that the one? That's the one where he gets.
That's the one where they build him a new house and everything.
That's the one I'm talking about. Because that's the one where there's the storm and everyone comes out okay except for the Flanders house. The Flanders house is destroyed, and that's very much that idea encapsulated into one episode, like the testing the one who is most seemingly most loyal and faithful.
Dude, there's this episode that I don't think you might have seen because it's like fairly recent, but actually, you might have. Actually, I'm lying. I think it's actually like season 31, so you might have saw it. But
the question is if I remember it. I know I've watched all of season 31, but that's a lot of stuff I threw on in the background.
There's this episode where Todd like feels like he's going to forget Maude because he lost her so young.
I think I do remember that one.
And like his memory is really faint of her, and he's just and he's scared that he'll forget her completely. And they're like, part of the plot is him just kind of questioning and trying to understand why this could happen to his mom, and also like why was he gifted another mom and then she was taken away, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think that episode is really good, and I think it's just a crazy great thing to explore with those characters. I think the only thing I don't really like about it is Lisa keeps trying to convert Todd to Buddhism, which I think is kind of dumb. But like, I just think it's dumb because it's like, Lisa, his fucking mom, like, stop. You know what I mean? Like that's why I think it's dumb.
It's funny. I just watched the episode where Lisa becomes a Buddhist, and it was so funny how differently that would have been handled now, because like, it's so funny. Granted, it's 20 years ago that episode came out, but it was so interesting how like the kids are bullying Bart at school because his sister isn't a Christian anymore, and I'm like okay,
I forgot.
Is Springfield in the South? Like, where are we here?
When I think about that episode, I think about like what gets Lisa there, and it's because she goes to the church, and then they got like this fucking big ass screen, like Starbucks in it and shit.
They
like
have
that.
like Burns invests in the church, and it becomes a fucking money making entity, which I think is like I think that's a valid criticism of the modern church in a lot of ways, or a lot of them. Not obviously there's a million churches,
right, absolutely. Yeah.
It was, but that's it's interesting. I thought I talked about this a long time ago about doing a video trying to explore how The Simpsons like talks about religion, because I really like how it's handled in early stuff, because it never feels like it's making a statement about religion. It feels like it's using characters' faiths to further their development and like further the stories along. Like it's less about like them being like, we're Christian writers, and more being like, these are Christian characters. Like, and like, and like, obviously faith is something that changes and determines who you are and how you act. And so like, especially how this show came out in the late 80s, where see through this show that's been on for so long, in how it, like, how do people's perception of Ned Flanders change over the course of the show, right? Like,
yeah.
All right. Well, we were talking about Call of the Simpsons, and we went on a long Flanders tangent. We're good with a flangent, if you will, because it's not unlike Pixelated and Afraid from season 33, my favorite episode of season 33, where they lose their car and get stranded in the woods and have to figure out how to get home.
Yeah, I guess.
And the first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, so they're just doing a modern Call of the Simpsons. But obviously this is much more focused on the Pixelated and Afraid is much more focused on Homer and Marge's relationship. Call of the Simpsons is kind of just your fun Simpsons survive in the wild story. It's not many deep themes going on here, but it's fun.
I will say that I guess as a kid I probably would have found it really funny, but as an adult I guess I was just horrified when the RV went down. The first thing in my brain was like, oh fuck, the credit. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, they're gonna have to pay for that shit. Fuck. Like, that's the first thing I thought of. They got 3 kids. Yep. It's rough.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, like, that's so much of this whole season is, man, the Simpsons are in dire straits.
That's what I'm saying. They're not good. So when the fucking van broke, I was like, oh, dude.
I think this is fun. I don't have like that much to say about it other than I just like I enjoy seeing, like, it's funny to me how Marge and Lisa like get their shit together and have a fine time sleeping in the woods, and Homer and Bart are just like struggling through. And then Maggie's little adventure with the bears, which I love.
Right. The Bigfoot thing has so there's 2 things. First and foremost is there's a news anchor there, and I just think it's so funny that it's not Kent. Like, Kent Brockman is not invented yet, and it's weird to see another anchor that's not Kent. So there's that. But then there's also this joke that they do that is straight out of season 4 or 5. The shit with when the interviewers are talking to Marge and she's like, I don't know, he likes pork chops, and there's just a fucking headline that says Bigfoot loves pork chops, and it's like, I marry Bigfoot. Like, they just keep doing headline things.
Right.
Like, that is real indicative of like what the show would end up being, like, humor. Totally. Definitely stood up.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You mentioned earlier that it doesn't make sense that Marvin Monroe is like, who is this? What is this thing?
That's my last note.
But that's also like, it's, granted, I feel like we only really think about that stuff here because there is like a little bit of sense of continuity in some way. Well, there's not really in this season, but like,
a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like we wouldn't bat an eye if, like, in season 2, Professor Frink contradicts himself in season 6. You know what I mean? Like, in season 6, like, because like so many Simpsons episodes just tend to exist in like their own little bubble. But because this is the first season and there's only a few episodes, and Dr. Marvin Monroe only is featured in this season, and his 3 appearances all seemingly contradict each other based on how when they came out. So it is funnier to look at it that way. What you doing, Mo?
She's
sneezing? Bless you.
You okay?
Bless you, Mo.
All right. Oh, bless you. I was like, what the hell is that? And I turned around and she's just doing it. That's rough.
So I also liked at the end where they're like testing Homer, and they're like, it's inconclusive. We don't know if this is Bigfoot or not. We have no idea.
I have some applesauce.
I like Homer's initial voice is so funny. It's so Walter Matthau. Frosty chocolate milkshakes. I just watched season 14's Treehouse of Horror, which is the 13th one, and that's the one where Homer clones himself. And you get the Peter Griffin cameo, and then also you get the classic Homer cameo, and he just says the only thing he says is, "Let's go out for frosty chocolate milkshakes." You just have him do the old voice.
I think that's really funny.
It's pretty good. You got any other thoughts on Call of the Simpsons?
No, I don't. There's nothing else right there.
All right. We'll call you back sometime. The Simpsons.
Nice.
Let's talk about 108, the Telltale Head, which I feel like is back in the day when I thought about season 1, the Telltale Head was the episode I thought about. Like, I was this
And this is when Springfield feels lived in. This is when they become a
Right.
mob, which they usually
I agree
always
with that.
do. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I was like, oh, okay. Because before it was just like, it was just the family. Which, I mean, that's what the... See, no, actually, I'm not even going to say that because that's not what the show is. The show is Springfield at the end of the day. Like,
right.
It does bring it back to the family, but like the show wouldn't be anything without everyone else. And this is the one that introduces that concept that this is just this gigantic town of like all of these people that we recognize. And yeah, that I just find those like crowd shots just like super fascinating because
especially there's like some of the crowd shots are all front facing. They're like all front facing. I'm like, they will never do this again. It's crazy.
They found a way to include just everybody that we end up recognizing from this run. And I think that's super cool.
You're right. And you know what? Okay, so I thought at the first time when you said, oh, there's an episode later that feels like the show. It's like, so now when you say it, it makes sense because you're right. This is when it feels like, oh, this has like the town feels like Springfield now. This is all of it. The one thing I will say though, is I do feel like this episode is pretty unique in its formatting in a way that I wouldn't expect from later Simpsons, where it's like starts off and it's like it's starting with them running away from the mob and everything. And they're like, all right, here's the story, you know? And I really like this episode. This is a really good one. I do feel like Bart is too smart at the end. like he's so smart about like wrapping everything up in his speech where he's just like what does he say? He's like, look, if I had never done this, we never realized that we took this town for granted. You know what I mean? Like he's talking about how it brought everyone together. Like and that's a good thing. And I feel like in this season you get more of that from Bart. You get granted, we talked about earlier how Bart's not stupid, but that was really like this and Bart the Genius's ending. I'm like, those are really insightful, Bart. Like these are really insightful.
Now I feel like today he would have said a similar sentiment, but he would have said it in his own way.
Yes,
you know what I
mean,
for sure. He probably wouldn't have said it. He wouldn't have said it the exact same way.
Right.
But I could see Bart reaching that sentiment. It just he would probably say it like in a very Bart way.
Yeah, totally. There's a few things I noticed, little things about this in that last scene. One thing is I noticed they were already setting up the Smithers is in love with Burns thing.
Bro, I wrote that too, man.
That's crazy how early that was. I didn't realize that was like in the season 1.
That is so crazy. I love you, Smithers. The feeling is more than mutual, sir.
Yes, more than mutual. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
But I like that this episode is all about peer pressure. Like I like that this season tends to like every episode is about kind of a heavy issue, like something that's important for people to talk about and dissect and deconstruct. And like you've got depression and you've got, like infidelity is coming up. We'll talk about that for a couple episodes here. You've got, just keeping food on the table, buying presents for your kids. You've got, dishonesty in terms of Bart the Genius and bullying in Bart the General. There's just so many things that are like heavy concepts that they're like, all right, well, right. Which is, and then I like that he realized, like when Bart was like, I somehow got in my head that there was nothing more important than being popular, and Homer's like, oh shit, that was me.
Whoops.
I have one favorite line in this. It was really offhanded joke that just made me laugh, and it's because when he has like the fun day with the bullies and they all bond and they sit and they're staring at clouds and that's when they realize the Jebediah Springfield thing and they're like, oh, it looks like the statue without its head or whatever. And then when Bart goes and cuts off the statue head and he brings it to them and they're like, we wish we could meet him right now so we could kick the shit out of him or whatever. Yeah. And then Bart's like, but I thought you said, that you wanted to cut the head off the statue. And they say,
Cloud talk.
That was just cloud talk, man. I love that line so much.
I like that
was
being
just cloud talk.
Oh man, wait! I just looked down and I have that written actually.
Oh, dude, we got a lot of the same stuff written. I love that. Love that shit.
Oh, dude, when they go to the Quickie Mart and Jimbo says 5-finger discount, that always bothered me. For years, that bothered me.
I feel like in other episodes they say 4-finger discount.
They do, and that's why it bothered me because they 1000% do.
It's also like, granted, I guess they probably had 4 fingers in the shorts, but I was like, well, if they wrote this before they really were sure that they were going to have 4 fingers, then it kind of makes sense. But right. They had to have thought of that when they were recording it, right? Like they had to.
I know. There's just so many things about it where I'm like, why the fuck does he say 5? Like I never got it, but they do. I know, and they make Jimbo say it again. Jimbo says 4 in a later episode somewhere.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know when, but he does say 4-finger discount later.
That's funny. That's funny.
I didn't realize this is when he met them too. I forgot this is when he met them.
Right. Yeah, it is so interesting. Like how, because obviously they're establishing all these characters, so it makes sense for us to meet them when our characters meet them. But yeah, it's still a trip. It's like, oh, you just didn't see him, you just didn't know him at school, you know?
Like Bart establishes like, oh no, dude, like you don't have to introduce yourself. You guys are the worst kids in school, and they say like, oh, thanks. Well, like they don't have a relationship.
They didn't have any prior relationship to this, right, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, this is like the episode I always thought about for season 1. This is the one that's referenced a lot, like Cartoon Wars in South Park, when Cartman meets Bart, and he's like, are you a bad kid? What's the worst thing you ever done? He goes, one time I cut the head off a statue.
Whoa, that's hardcore.
That's hardcore, man. It's so hardcore. But it's funny. This is like the first season, and I feel like that event, the head of the statue getting cut off, I feel like is almost bigger than the season. Like I feel like that's imprinted on me. That before I went back and rewatched the season a bunch and really like grew to love it. Mm-hmm. Like when I thought about season 1, I was like, oh yeah, headless Jebediah Springfield. All right, should we move on?
Yeah. Oh man, this next one is so fucking funny.
It's so good. This is Life on the Fast Lane, which is their Emmy winner. They got nominated for a bunch of Emmys because Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire got nominated in a separate category since it was a special. Wow. So that didn't win, but it was nominated, and Life on the Fast Lane did win.
Nice.
This is the first time that I realized what the pun is in this title.
Oh, me too. Because I typed it wrong in my notes. I wrote Life in the Fast Lane.
I always thought it was Life in the Fast Lane.
And then I looked at the list and I was like, wait a minute. Oh.
I can't believe I never understood that. It's the fucking bowling lane. You're on a bowling lane, not in a bowling lane. And this is also probably the first time I watched this episode where I was like, this is so fucking
Me
funny.
too. I don't think I ever hated this one or nothing like that. But like, Jock is so fucking funny.
He's so funny. But this also like, so one thing I noticed is, I'll talk about this when we get to the next episode too. It was weird. They rearranged this with the next episode. The next one was supposed to come before this, and the next one is about Homer's like infidelity. You know what I mean? And it was interesting. It almost felt like, especially because of how angry Marge is in the next one over Homer dancing with that woman.
Right.
To that one episode prior, Marge like almost went to some other dude's apartment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. What the fuck?
And it almost would have made way more sense if it came out how it was written, where she had already witnessed Homer doing something like that, and then that was one of the things that added to her like ongoing like, oh God, Homer is not a good husband.
Right.
But this episode is so good. I think it's also so nuanced. It's just like and also this is again not a funny concept for them to be tackling.
Whatsoever. They make a really funny character.
Yes.
But
exactly.
yeah,
But it's
not a funny thing to put Marge or Homer through. There's just shots of Homer where he doesn't know how to talk to her. He's just so sad, and he just doesn't. You know what I mean? And it's like and that's the thing. Like, this episode cracks me the fuck up. It's so funny.
Yeah.
But all of that stuff works really, really well. Like, you understand why, like, because Homer never actively goes, "Oh, you seeing somebody?" He just kind of knows. You know what I mean? He just knows something's wrong.
Right.
And I think that they play that emotion. I think it helps it land even more. I think, like, that the awkward tension when, like, they're just laying in bed and they're, like, not looking at each other and shit. And, like, I think that just helps it because it's like you can tell they both have something to say, just neither one of them know exactly how or when to say it, you know?
Totally. I think this is such a good episode. They also, like, kind of the first, like, real jerk ass Homer, like Homer forgetting her birthday and then going to buy himself a gift for her.
So bad.
It's so bad. It's like inexcusably bad.
Oh yeah, my first note is, wow, Homer is the worst.
Yeah, and that it feels like the first. It feels like he's obviously not perfect throughout the season, but like this feels like the first time where it's like, wow, Homer is a asshole in this.
Yeah,
like, he does something so profoundly selfish.
Yeah. Wait, can I let my cat out the room really fast?
Yeah, do your thing.
Because she is going batshit. 1 second.
I wrote down a few jokes that I liked. I like that. So Bart gets Marge the perfume, and this is one of my favorite Bart, like, being kind of a, like, this is I think probably the line that is an example of, like, why moms were horrified by Bart Simpson in the 80s and 90s. And it's when she goes and he asks why she's not wearing it. And she's like, well, I want to save it for a special occasion. And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? There's a gallon of it. It's so funny, though. It's so funny. Also, they do a joke here that Marge has giant feet.
Oh, right. Yeah, they do.
This is Marge and Peggy, big feet gang.
Yeah, they do that. I forgot him. Yeah. And then the guy is like, we don't fucking have those sizes.
That's so crazy. I mean, that's never a thing later. It's just a one-off joke. Whereas it's an ongoing thing for Peggy. Like, they have a whole subplot in an episode where Peggy drives to a whole nother town to buy her giant shoes so that nobody knows. It's so
poor
funny.
Peggy, bro.
Oh man. But I do love that, like, Marge is so hurt, so upset, and so, like, resentful of Homer for what he's done with this bowling ball that she's like, fuck this, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna use it. She doesn't know how to bowl. She's never bowled. She doesn't even know how the bowling alley works. She doesn't know you need your own shoes. She doesn't know you need a lane. She just goes, she's like, I'm gonna bowl. And I like that. I don't know. I just like that attitude and resilience in Marge, where she's just like, I've been wronged and I'm not going to let him get off with this. You know, right, I'm not going to let him get away with this. But man, Jacques is so funny. Do you have a favorite Jacques line?
I love this shit when they're at. Oh wait, okay. So I think my favorite. I got
two written that are so funny.
I think my favorite Jacques line is it's not quite breakfast, it's not quite lunch, but you get a good meal. He's explaining what brunch is.
He says you get a piece of cantaloupe at the end. That was one I wrote down too. I wrote it down in all caps. That made me laugh that hard.
I love that one. I love oh man, it's so fucking funny when they're when he's trying to teach her to be one with the bowling lane, and they're like on the floor and they're like going back and forth, and she says yes, back and forth. And he says, "You hungry?" He says, yes. And he says, 4 onion rings. He yells it like loud as shit.
That's Albert Brooks, right? Doing Jacques.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then you sent me that like the blooper outtakes where he was just improvising. They're so funny, and you can just hear Julie Kavner laughing the whole time.
Julie Kavner's laughing. Everybody everybody like that's there for the recording is just cracking the fuck up by the end of it. But yeah, there's parts where like they obviously couldn't use because like they were going back and forth, and Julie Kavner would just freeze and be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's so funny. Okay, so my favorite line, I like the brunch one, but I like there are 10 pins in my heart. You've knocked over 8. Won't you please pick up that spare? It's so funny. I also just I like that he lives in an apartment called Fiesta Terrace. I don't know why that's funny to me. And then I just love the dilemma at the end and it's literally a sign that's new power plant Fiesta Terrace.
Yeah, bro. I love that Marge goes down the Fiesta one, stops, and she's like, fuck it. And she backs up, and then she goes to the PowerPoint one, and then she stops again and then comes back and like looks at it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I like that. Yeah.
I also though I think what I appreciate so much about this is that like you understand, like you sympathize with Marge's pain and hurt, and like and like you all of a sudden she just meets this person who treats her like a queen and like treats her like, you know, gives her the love and attention and like that she deserves. And you're like,
because it's not even necessary, because you know, like Last Temptation of Homer, where they just create this perfect person for Homer in Mindy. They don't do that here. Like Jock isn't like the perfect like one-to-one, oh, this is exactly who Marge is kind of person. But at the same time, he is showing her something that Homer refuses to, you know? And I think that I think that that's like enough for the audience to understand, you know what I mean? Like why this is kind of complicated for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated how it was handled. It's a great episode. This is such a good episode. I didn't really realize until looking over it now that this was the Emmy winner, and I understand why. This is so good.
Yeah, I would have if I was in front of, well, actually, if I was running this season, I probably would have submitted Mona and Lisa.
I think I would have too, but I also like the more I think about it, I'm like, all right, you have an incredible Albert Brooks guest performance.
Yeah,
that goes
I think
a long way.
They made the best call.
Yeah,
they made the best call.
It's interesting. It's a tough call, but it's such a good episode. I also love now this is another example of them doing like a uniquely directed and animated like dream sequence where she's like dreaming of them like dancing on the bowling alley or whatever. I really like the way that looks. Color palette's really cool. Yeah. Super cool. Man, great episode. Fucking great episode. Love this one.
Helen is in this one. Helen Lovejoy. Which as a fan, I instantly yelled, "Oh my damn!" when I saw her, just because I knew she's the biggest gossip, and like I'm like, Marge is gonna get into some shit now that I'm looking at Helen. Oh boy,
fucking Helen! It is so funny how the Reverend's wife is like known as
she's the worst.
The town gossip. She is the worst. She's one of my least favorite. I mean, she's supposed to be the worst, but she is like, she's a character I detest in the show. All right, you want to move on? Homer's Night Out?
Yeah, let's go to Homer's Night Out.
All right, Homer's Night Out. So this is supposed to come before it, and I think it actually would have made more sense if it came before it. But it is interesting that they do kind of 2 in a row that are, granted, they wrote 2 in a row that were like about infidelity, and but they also aired them, even though they aired them out of order, back to back. I really like how this incident is incited, that it's all about like Bart gets the spy camera and takes a photo and like just manages to get the photo.
It's rough.
It's rough, but also like rough. I love that Bart takes this photo, and it's the kids wanting the print of it isn't like they just think it's a good photo. Like the kids in the photo club are just like, this is such a well composed photo. Bart, can I get a print of it? It made me laugh. Made me think Bart should have pursued photography more.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, I don't know. Like it's also interesting because like you see Homer goes out with this, like his friends, and you can see he just gets caught up in the moment. He doesn't seem like he has any ill intentions or anything. Like he's not trying like trying to cheat on his wife. He's just like dances with the stripper, you know, and they're just dancing next to each other too.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing with it was just that like I think this might just be like a thing that people have with the stripping profession in general, but I just couldn't, in that photo, I couldn't see how Homer was objectifying her. You know what I mean? And that was
Agreed.
a big issue that Marge had.
Yes.
And I couldn't, I don't know. I just couldn't really.
I think it is more of a sign of the times where like that profession is stigmatized, and like, you know, it's the culture at the time was much more sensitive to sexualization at all. You know, and like it's like it's obviously a testament to how things have changed.
Right. Absolutely.
So you kind of always have to keep that in mind in the context of this episode, because you're right. Like I don't see. I like the message. I like the idea.
I like where it takes us. That's why I wrote that too. Is that I like how practically the moral is just like, just respect women, pretty much.
Yeah.
And like that, I guess, especially for the time, I guess, like I do think that's really important because dudes are assholes. Right. You know what I mean?
And it also, you know, they might have been afraid as writers, or maybe they were I mean, granted, Jim Brooks had a lot of didn't have much interference creatively because of his clout, but it's possible that they, because of the times, and because the show is new, they didn't want to go too crazy in terms of like how they presented Homer and the dancer. You know what I mean? It could be that they really just tried to, but you know, it also could just be more of a sign of what things were like back then and how people reacted to things. And somebody please think of the children.
I do think like, I think Homer, man, what a fucking time we live in now compared to back then, because the way the word gets out is just people just keep copying the same photo.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that is just so funny to me. That like that's like,
it went viral. Man. He went fucking viral.
Yeah, I wrote that. I wrote Homer went viral.
That's so funny. Yeah, obviously, like, and yeah, they had to get that idea out there somehow. They could have just had Marge walk in, but I guess it had to be I think what makes it hurt more for Marge is that that business is then broadcast, you know, like if they did episode today, he would have gone viral on Twitter or whatever, on like TikTok or something. And like he would have gotten filmed dancing with the stripper or whatever.
Right.
And then their business is out there.
I get how it makes Marge look, and I get how it makes the family look 1000%. People are just sharing this picture of him just all over town, and everybody's fucking laughing and like,
right, you
know what I mean? Like, and she has to see it in the wild, like, you know, like that kind of. I completely get that, and I also get Marge not wanting Homer to present the wrong idea to Bart. You know, like I get Marge being like, you have to make sure that Bart understands that this is a woman. This isn't just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, I see you, bro. Like, it's not any of that. You have to make sure that Bart understands that this is a woman and she has real emotions just like everybody else, and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So in all of those ways, I totally understand what the episode is going for in that regard. I just, again, you know, times have changed, how people view stripping in general. Some people haven't changed their minds, but you know, more people, a lot of people have. Yeah, you know, so this isn't one that necessarily like is his you know, and that's just gonna happen when you have a show that's been on for 30-something years, you know. Just,
right.
Yeah.
I also like, I definitely I understand Marge's like pain and frustration, especially because like, especially when it becomes like this big public spectacle where it's like they are the town gossip because of that photo that's getting passed around. So like I understand her anger. And I like the lesson, but like we've said, yeah, it's like, granted we're looking at it through a lens of 2022, but like how do they get to objectification from just a photo of two people next to each other, you know? And it's like, it's more of a sign of the times.
Right.
But yeah, I think I wrote, my note is a little dated, but a very nice sentiment. Right. That's exactly what I wrote. Good episode though. It's good. It's fun.
Yeah.
Should we move on? 111, Crepes of Wrath.
One last thing about this one.
Yeah, what you got?
I like that, like, Burns is just really obsessed with, like, how the fuck did he do that? You know what I mean? He's like, how do you talk to women? Like, he's like trying to figure that out through Homer.
Right.
And then when he sees Homer on stage, he's like, how does he do it, Smithers? And Smithers says, he's a love machine, sir. I don't know. I like the women too. When the women see Homer, like when he's driving and they like wave at him and flirt with him, he's like, I still got it.
I like the joke at the beginning when that Bart doesn't understand what the mailman's called if it's a woman. He goes, it's the female man. Yeah. Which is funny because the word male is in it. Yeah. So, and that Lisa's correcting him. The female carrier, Bart. All right, 111. Let's move on to the Crepes of Wrath. The beginning of this episode where Homer falls and like can't get up is like kind of scary. The way it's presented is like scary to me. Yeah. It's pretty rough. It's like I don't know. That's all I got about that. It was freaky. But this whole premise is interesting. Like Bart's just so bad. They're like, oh, I'll send him on an exchange program.
Send him to fucking France. Yeah.
Right. To France.
I didn't, I remember this episode because it was the first time as a kid that I actively read subtitles.
Oh, right. Because of all the French.
Yeah, right. Because every time it would happen in other shows, I just would kind of just wait for the English to come back. Right. But I cared about The Simpsons so much. I was like, what are they talking about? And I remember like actually reading those. What is this? Oh, right. Agnes is in this episode. Skinner's mom is in this episode. And she's so nice. And she keeps calling him Spanky. Two things that never come back.
Spanky, that's right. Yeah. Oh my God, Spanky. Yeah, it is funny how you see all the characters. They bring in so many characters, but like some of them they already figured out their thing, but some of them were just like prototypes of what they became. Spanky. That's pretty funny. Man, it was kind of like I feel for Bart, like when he's in France, like these people just abusing him, make him a pack mule. Like he's to carry all that shit. Yeah,
they make him drink antifreeze.
Antifreeze, this is crazy,
bro. And then, dude, I forgot about this part, but the scene where like Marge writes to Bart and she's like, "I don't know why you didn't write, but you know, I guess you're having too much fun." It's so fucking sad.
I know.
It's so sad.
It's rough, man. Yeah. It has a good joke in there. I laughed a lot when he said, "We think Maggie may say our first word any day now." It's so good. But it's like it's funny, but it's also helps illustrate Bart's like sadness and like because he's missing out. Like Bart might miss out on Maggie's first word. Like that's fucked up. You know what I mean? So like it's a joke that aids to the situation's drama in a good way. Man, I like the scene. So Adil, the foreign exchange student who comes and he tries to steal the nuclear power plant schematics for his country. But I love the conversation at the table where Lisa's like defending America and Adil's is like anti-capitalist And Homer's like, maybe you're both right. Maybe America is the land of the free where anything's possible. And also capitalism is a machine being oiled by the blood of the workers. It's so funny.
Yeah,
It's so funny. Man. And it's also just fun. It's funny that was written in the late 80s, like in the Reagan era, right after the Reagan era. All right. What else we got here? I like, even though like it's kind of a silly solution, I like the part just like all of a sudden he speaks French out of desperation. He gets French. It's nice. It's a nice, and I also like though that he initially brings up that they're like abusing him and he needs help. But the thing that the French policeman is like, oh, that's a serious crime, is they put antifreeze in the wine.
Yeah, bro.
He's not worried about Bart. He's
He does
like,
do that.
That's a serious crime.
He's like, antifreeze, fuck that.
But I love afterwards, like once he finally, like they start walking away and Bart's like, oh, I'm finally going to be out of this. He says to him, my savior, you will always have a place in my heart. And he says it in French. It's so funny. And then oh my god, the one of the last jokes of the episode is my favorite, is when they finally cut back to him back in America talking about it, and he goes, so basically I met one nice French person. It's so good. Yeah, this is lower on my list, but like it's still a good episode. And this one's super unique. Like this one is another one that feels pretty different than a lot of stuff they would do later.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think they would have did this later.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely different. I don't have a lot of notes. I think I actually went through all my notes.
I definitely went through mine.
Well, there is a really funny drawing of Skinner when he's like when he rings the
looking through the thing. Yes, yeah,
that shit is so funny.
It's so funny. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh man. All right, let's move on to 112. Krusty Gets Busted.
Nice.
Our first, not our first appearance of Sideshow Bob, but our first voice appearance of Sideshow Bob. I'm pretty sure he was in earlier episodes. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is Krusty and Bob's first appearance.
Krusty's in a Telltale Head.
Yeah.
And Bob is in a different one because he has an afro before.
That's right. I remember him having an afro. I remember that. Okay, so the beginning, they show Krusty. They show him kind of abusing Bob as the Sideshow host. And I was laughing that, granted, I see why they did it in this episode because it ties into the premise, but one of the first things we see on Krusty's show is his catchphrase is, don't blame me, I didn't do it, which becomes Bart's catchphrase on Krusty.
That's my first fucking note. I was like, oh man, that's sick.
And this is our first Itchy and Scratchy, right?
Yes.
I think this is our first Itchy and Scratchy.
I guess, yeah.
But granted, like I understand why they did the I didn't do it joke here, because it's supposed to tie into him being accused of a crime and then him later saying I didn't do it and everyone laughing like it's a punchline.
Right.
And so I get why they did it, but it is so funny that verbatim became Bart's catchphrase on the Krusty show later in the show, and Bart Gets Famous. I also love the gag, which is just a gag about The Simpsons. I love Itchy and Scratchy in general, because Itchy and Scratchy like isn't funny, but that's the point. Itchy and Scratchy is overt violence that is like making fun of the old cartoons, like the old Looney Tunes stuff that was just very violent. Like a lot of that stuff was so violent in its humor, and so like it's satirizing that. But I like that Marge comes in and is like, I don't understand how you kids like this violent stuff, and she's like, well, if cartoons were meant for adults, they'd put them on in prime time.
Man, you just hit both of my notes just like back to back, bro. That was my next one.
We've had a lot of the same thoughts for this one. It's great, and that's why we do this shit. This is the first Wiggum episode, right? It's the first time we see Wiggum, or was he in the Telltale Head?
I think he's in the Telltale. Yeah, he's in the Telltale Head because He's because that's when he doesn't know who cut the head off the statue. He's like, if you have any leads, dial O. That number again is O.
Is O. Dial O. Oh man. Man, this is I like how cowardly Homer is at the when that all happens. He just like dives behind the behind the stuff. One of my biggest laughs in the episode is when they do the lineup of clowns. it's the police lineup, but they're all clowns.
Yeah.
That's just a funny bit. That's good stuff.
Krusty without makeup.
Yeah, which like not a thing they really do much later. They kind of keep his makeup on and make it his skin color almost like.
Yeah, there's that joke in Triple Bypass where he says, "Oh, this ain't makeup." You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then even when you see him in, there's another. Is it another Sideshow Bob one? What's the one where Krusty like leaves society?
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's the one I'm thinking of too. Fuck. Which one is that? I think it is another Sideshow Bob thing, though.
I think it is.
Is that Krusty? It's not Krusty.
No. It's the one. Is it the one where he quits? I don't know. Is the Last Temptation of Krusty?
Last Temptation of Krusty. I think isn't that with his dad?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember. But I do remember he was like hiding out on a boat in one episode.
Yeah.
Or like as a boatman, like a sailor. And he's got like a whole different outfit on, but he's still got his face makeup. Right? Like,
he doesn't. He just has a beard. He has a beard. He's normal yellow. He just has a beard.
Look this up.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Oh, you're right. I just misremembered it. That's wild. But there's other episodes where he has the face makeup on and the rest of his body is yellow.
Absolutely. There's been moments when he's been in like hot tubs and shit, and like he still has the makeup on or whatever. Like they don't like taking it off anymore. That's one thing.
That's funny.
Like
So yeah, this is but this is obviously Kelsey Grammer has got the best voice.
Right.
He's got the best voice ever, and this is a relatively like tame. I mean, like it feels like they started to figure out Bob in this, but like he becomes so theatrical later. Like you see a little hints of it in this one, and it's great. But there are some lines I really like in it. Like I like how they refer to Krusty as the clown prince of corruption. It's so dramatic.
I like Bob saying that after his show, he says he's glad that he's showing that he's not too uptown for tots, which I just thought was super fucking funny.
I like that when they catch him, he just Scooby-Doos. He says, "I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for these meddling kids."
Yeah.
Just straight up Scooby-Doo. And then also I thought it was kind of foreshadowing that Bob's like his like as he's getting dragged away. Also, I like Bart saying, "Take him away, boys," after he figures it out. But he like Bob goes on a rant as he's getting dragged away of being like treat kids as equals, don't like take them seriously, you know what I mean? And that's like kind of funny given that he spends so much of his life then trying to kill Bart like he's not a child.
Like he's like fucking exactly.
Yeah. But this is another classic. And I think this is the last one they wrote, and this was supposed to be the finale, which is like actually I think this fits as a finale. Like this makes sense as a finale. It's a big episode, you got a good guest star. And like this makes sense. Let me make sure. Oh, you know what? No, never mind. Crepes of Wrath was the finale. This was 12, and it was listed 12. Obviously, the first episode written is the last of the season, which is bizarre.
Right.
But that's so interesting. You know who directed this one?
Was it? It wasn't.
Which is interesting. I I think we talked about that earlier. How if they did another movie, they'd probably just bring in David Silverman. But Brad Bird would be cool. He's got a good track record.
It would be pretty fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie.
It would be cool. I'm into it.
Yeah,
man.
I love the last shot of this episode with Bart just like laying in all the Krusty merch.
Yes, me too.
It's a good way to end it. It was really good.
It's so funny. Like at the end, Krusty's like the one boy who always believed in me, and then then he just never remembers him ever again, which is a great ongoing gag. But like, man, that sucks, Bart. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh man. You got anything more about this? Should we move on to the season premiere / finale?
Yeah, let's go.
My first note is that for 113, Some Enchanted Evening, is that you can see how this was written as the pilot. Even though we talked earlier how we agree that Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire is a better pilot. It's a better pilot. And then I actually already talked about some of my notes. I said I feel like she wouldn't have called Marvin Monroe after There's No Disgrace Like Home. So that's one of the things that doesn't make sense. And then also how it's funny how all the coloring seemed to have figured itself out and then switches back for this one because yeah.
Have you ever seen the original cut with like that fucked up animation that they don't like?
I've seen it, but I don't remember it very well. But I've definitely seen some of the fucked up animation from this.
So I watched it so many times just because I was so fucking fascinated by it. And in watching this episode, it is really, really interesting because like, I guess like that story that they always tell leads you to believe that they just left nothing in from that original cut, which isn't true.
Right.
There's a lot of animation from that original cut that's still in this one. And you can very much tell what it is because like in that first one, there's like this weird gradient that they have in the background of just like from like light to dark, and it'll just be like a color. It'll be like the color red or pink because that's the color of the living room, and it'll just go like that. And there's a lot of leftover shots from that. I do think I am just really interested in like how it looks. I do think it just looks really funny. There's of course this one has that animation that everybody loves to share on Twitter of Bart talking to the animated by Dan Haskett, who one of the most prolific African American animators of all time, essentially. He did a lot of work on these early. I think he designed Skinner. I'm not sure, but I think he did. He did a lot of early work on these Tiny Toons and shit like that. And I think that's really like a lot of my interest in this one is from an animation standpoint, I guess. Mm-hmm. Just fascinated by the fact that this was like duct taped together and that this almost killed the biggest show in the history of television. I know. Think it's like really, really fucking crazy.
It's nuts.
We were talking about how continuity heavy some of these episodes appear to be.
Yeah, more so than other seasons.
Right. Yeah. This one, again, another valid reason for it to be last. It has the bowling ball. It says Homer on it.
It does have the bowling ball. It says Homer on it. I wonder if that was a shot that got changed and they were like, well, since it takes place later, we might as well. Right. Or if it was just like a thing that they wrote in, not realizing they were going to make that a plot point in another episode, or even something they just animated in, not thinking about it. You know, right. Like I'm curious how that happened. This is also like one of the reasons I see how this is the pilot is that they do a bunch of Mo crank calls. And this is the first time they wrote Mo crank calls.
This is the first time they do them, yeah.
You see them. There's one in an earlier episode, but this is the first time they wrote it. I think there's one I wrote it. The first one you see is in Homer's Odyssey. Really? Yeah, there's definitely one in there. I don't remember what it is, but I wrote it down specifically, so I know it was in there. But this one the sitters don't want to come over. Right. I really like the design of Bots, of Ms. Bots.
I do too.
It's definitely doesn't feel like something you would see in later Simpsons, but I don't know. It's it's a good scary looking character, and there's some crazy shots of her, like the shot where she's got the rope, where she's like getting the rope out and it's like kind of an angled upwards, like you're a kid looking up at her and she's about to tie you up. Like, oh shit. Shit. Did they ever bring her back in later episodes?
I don't think so.
Probably I bet she cameoed in something.
They do bring back from Simpsons Roasting the guy that gave them Santa's Little Helper.
Yeah,
he comes back.
That.
He came back a couple
because
years
in
ago.
the one about Santa's Little Helper's mom, right?
Yeah, that episode's pretty fucking good. Like Santa's Little Helper has like PTSD and shit. And
I remember that was like last season,
good.
Right?
Was that last year? It might have been, but
it was.
Definitely it might have been. It was definitely past 2 years at least.
Right,
it wasn't that long ago.
I remember liking that one.
I remember liking it too. I also remember, because it ended the season, so I also remember thinking like, oh, this could be like a continuity shift because they just end it with the mom there. But the mom does come back actually.
She comes back in this season. There's just like it's the what was it? She like they're like watching TV together.
Right.
I can't remember. Was it this one? Yeah, it was Mother and Other Strangers. Mother and Other Strangers, which was this season. Which is the one. What happens in this one? Oh, this is it's the Homer's mom one. It's the one where it's the Mona one, which they haven't with the flashbacks of Homer almost seeing his mom again before when he was a teenager or whatever. But yeah, that is funny. It feels. I would love a little status quo shift like that. Just have 2 dogs. Why not? You know.
Okay.
Miss Bots is also played by Penny Marshall, which is funny. You know who Penny Marshall is?
I just remember when she passed away.
Yeah, she died a few years back.
Yeah, it was a thing just because it was just like
she plays Laverne in Laverne and Shirley. But she's also a director and producer. She directed some movies, including Big, very popular Tom Hanks film. Yeah. And
got it. That's the guy from Big. Tom Hanks, funny guy.
Tom Hanks. And then she's also, I believe, I think she's brothers with Gary Marshall. Gary Marshall is was a prolific writer, actor, director, producer who was like responsible for so much classic television, like Dick Van Dyke and Odd Couple and Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley and all that shit. So yeah, it's they're like TV, they're like TV royalty, the Marshalls. Also, and there's a great podcast I really like called Comedy Bang Bang. And for years, Paul F. Tompkins would come on and he would play a fictional version of Gary Marshall. And it was a very funny fictional version of Gary Marshall. I think he retired him when he died. But yeah, shout out to Comedy Bang Bang. Great podcast. Good podcast. Great podcast. What else we got here? Oh, one thing in this episode that I was like, oh, this is funny. And this is funny and something that I wouldn't have expected. I feel like they didn't do anything like this later. Is like when Marge is mad waiting for Homer and she roars at the kids.
Yeah, that's so out of place. They would have never done that.
And I like the ending. I like the ending where they go get the cops and like Homer unties her and pays her and gives her a big tip and lets her go. And then they come in, they're like, we got her. It's a funny ending. It's a like, I see how this works as a pilot. It's a decent pilot. I'm kind of glad it didn't work out as the pilot.
Me too.
Something perfect about Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire being the pilot.
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm not going to go that far. I was going to say, I don't know if the show... Does the show catch on the exact same way if this aired first?
Good question.
I don't know.
It's kind of impossible to say. It probably would have been fine. Like
probably, yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. The numbers were pretty nuts that whole first season.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really dip below 24 million people,
which is impossible today.
Impossible.
It is impossible today.
Unless they were able to count up all the like streaming numbers, which maybe gets close, but oh wait, no, sorry. One episode got down to only 20 million. Ugh.
Oh, gee.
Terrible.
Really,
Terrible.
man. It really shook the fucking boat there. Thin ice.
And the Emmy-winning episode that we both love was the highest rated of the year, 33.5 million. Almost the highest rated of the series, only surpassed by another top-tier episode, Season 2, Episode 1, Bart Gets an F. 32.6 million. I don't think they ever got more than that.
They keep at a certain point. I don't know when it happens, but like it's either season 2 or 3. But like there was a point where like the ratings kind of fluctuated because Fox, I don't know what the fuck they were doing. Like they were like, fuck it, man. We just gonna put our biggest fucking cartoon up against the Cosby Show, which I just kind of thought was so fucking dumb. Like, okay, yeah, whatever. You want to put your nuts on the table, but no, stop. This thing just started. And you're going to put it up against the biggest, the thing that revived the sitcom genre. That's fucking, stop.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, whatever. It didn't kill the show, though. It's fine.
True.
Yeah.
Man, this season is
great.
It's something. It's great. I love it so much. Let's like just wrap it up. Let's talk about season 1 as a whole.
Yeah.
Man, I love this season. I think I've kind of expressed this throughout the episode, but like, I like it because the premises are real. Like they're not comedic. They are real familial drama, and it's a funny show. There's a lot of funny stuff about it, and it's a comedy, but like they're not shying away from like dramatic premises, and they're not shying away, and they're not like undercutting the dramatic premises with comedy. They're actually like exploring them. They explore these heavy ideas, and like that's not something that they abandon, but it is something they do less often. It's like the consistent through line of this season is that they are like down to explore these real, actual familial issues.
Right.
And I really appreciate it for that. I also just have like, I'm so charmed by the animation style and the music and like the voices, everything just like it feels different, and I'm so charmed by it. And also just like the small moments. There's so many good small moments, like them at the opera, the family hanging at the opera and like giggling together. The Homer and Bart playing catch in Bart the Genius. The one I meant to say earlier that I didn't is in Homer's Night Out, when he's kicked out of the house. There's this great moment that I love when Homer comes back and he's trying to go to apologize, and all the kids are like, "Dad," and they're all just like, they all like wish him good luck. They're just like, "Good luck," and they're just like so happy to see him, but also so like somber, and they're just like, they just really wishing him the best. They're just like, go get her, good luck, Dad. You know, it's just such a sweet. It's so sweet and heartfelt in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm like so drawn to this newest season, is because it feels like they're really honing in on a lot of these heartfelt aspects that, and you know, granted, I'm always drawn to those throughout the show, but it's not like the draw. It's not the draw of the show for most of it, you know?
Right. Like one thing that I found myself like starting to get a little annoyed with the newer ones is just that there would be potential for just these really, really great moments, but they would just be too prioritized trying to do a gag that they wouldn't go for it. I think it's on the Simpsons movie commentary, but I've heard I think it was Jim Brooks say that every opportunity you have to get the audience to at least crack a smile, you gotta go for it. And I think that's why they stuff these things with gags, and there's always stuff in the background, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But no, when you overstuff, you do lose soul. There's this one from, I think it might have been last year. If it wasn't, it was definitely the year before. But there was one where Lisa's the president, and you see how that took a toll on her relationship with Marge, and her and Marge didn't really talk. And when they finally meet up, and there was just potential for it to be like this really tearful conversation. You know what I mean? But they just kind of squander that, and they like tell a joke, and it just kind of it really frustrated me, just because I felt like that's the perfect situation to put these characters in, and you guys didn't go as far as you could have with it. And that's what I feel about these newer ones, is that they're going as far as they can with a lot of the emotion in this. I love that in Pixelated and Afraid, it's not a story, even like these, it's not a story about Homer and how he isn't romantic, or he can't do this for his wife, he can't do that. No, it's about them being content, and they never argue the whole episode. They never have a disagreement. It's just, I love you. And I just feel like after 30-something years, Homer and Marge deserve a story like that, and I'm so glad that they gave it to them.
Agreed.
You know? And I look forward to shit like that, man. I look forward to the Bleeding Gums thing. If these last few are a pattern, it proves that even if they don't completely nail it, they are going to try to squeeze the emotion out of that, is my prediction.
Agreed.
I do feel like that's where they're going to go with it.
Going back to what you said about Jim Brooks saying, like, anytime you can get the audience to crack a smile, you go for it. I feel like it almost sounds like they undervalued that you can make the audience smile in a heartfelt moment.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be comedic, and like, it doesn't have to be purely humor. You can try to connect to the audience and make them feel good in a way that's not undercutting the drama. Right. And yeah, I'm glad that they're doing more of that now. It's so funny how, like, I'm watching the new season. Obviously it's mostly Selman. Like, Selman is running the majority of the season now for the first time. And no disrespect to Al Jean, because I like the dude's a legend. He's wrote my favorite episode of this season. He's written so many of my favorite episodes of the whole show.
Yeah. Lisa Sachs is another good one he wrote.
Lisa Sachs is so good. Good. But it is funny how it feels like when I'm watching the new season, when I watch an episode, and I think overall the whole season has been solid. There haven't been any ones where I'm like, well, that was a stinker. But when most of the episodes I tend to end and I've got like a good feeling in my heart, and I feel like, and then I see like the executive producer Matt Selman, and the ones where I'm not as attached to, it always comes up and it says Al Jean's name first. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, because he's a legend and he's written so many of the greats, but I just really it's more of a testament to what Selman is bringing to the show right now. Right. And I really love what they're doing. So
I think that really hurt the show, is having one showrunner for that long. I think it did damage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just because that's how the show was just so fresh for so long. It's just that there was just all these different voices saying, okay, you know what? Let's focus on these kind of stories, these kind of jokes, these kind of moments. Everybody had their specific things that they just wanted to hone in and focus on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know, like, and with all of those Al Jean years, which is practically just the entire middle of the series, it's hard to figure out, like, what are these? What are these focusing on? Like, what are you trying to amplify with these? There's too many for there to be a pattern. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, at a certain point, all of that just becomes the show. That just becomes what the show is at some point, instead of just like, oh, this is this new person bringing a new voice. And that's why I think these feel so fresh, is just because, like, we've kind of forgotten what The Simpsons is like when another person is in front of it.
Yes,
you know?
Totally. Now I'm thinking about it, though. This is such an interesting... I'm thinking about this new Bleeding Gums episode, and I'm realizing that even though I'm, obviously raving about Selman and what he brings to the show, I'm realizing that Moaning Lisa is an Al Jean and Mike Reiss thing, and that they were also the ones who who spearheaded Round Springfield, even though that was a David Merkin season. So I'm wondering if maybe it is an Al Jean episode. Who knows? It could be.
Maybe. Because I don't know if you knew about, like, in Round Springfield, the reason they do Jazzman is because that's Al Jean's favorite song.
I love that. Yeah. It became one of my favorite songs. But it's because of my connection to the damn episode. It's so good. It's so good. Man, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to I'm gonna rewatch. We should rewatch Moaning Lisa and Round Springfield before April 10th when this new one comes out.
I'm
eager to check it out.
I'll do this the 10th. Oh man, I thought it was gonna be this Sunday. Whatever.
No, there's no. I think there's one more. I think there's one more. There's 1 week off, and I can't remember if it's this weekend or the next weekend.
All I know is Family Guy not coming back till May, and I'm actually really upset about that. So
right. Okay, so there's no episode. There's no episode next week or this week. So on Sunday there won't be one, but there is one the following, and that's the Bleeding Gums.
Got it.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited. Very excited. Season 1 of The Simpsons, I love. I adore it. I love it for different reasons than I love the rest of The Simpsons. But I fucking love it, and I feel like it's greatly undervalued in Simpsons history, in my opinion. I agree. You got any other last thoughts before we rank and sign off?
Oh man, let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Let's get
okay. My ranking, bottom to top. Number 13, The Crepes of Wrath. Number 12, The Call of the Simpsons. 11, Some Enchanted Evening. 10, Homer's Odyssey. 9, Bart the General. 8, Homer's Night Out. 7, Krusty Gets Busted. 6, The Telltale Head. 5, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. 4, Bart the Genius. 3, There's No Disgrace Like Home. 2, Life on the Fast Lane. And 1, Moaning Lisa.
Same top 3 swapped, but everything else is pretty different. I guess except 12. 13, Homer's Odyssey. 12, The Call of the Simpsons. 11, Bart the General. 10, The Crepes of Wrath. 9, Homer's Night Out. 8, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. 7, The Telltale Head. 6, Bart the Genius. 5, Some Enchanted Evening. 4, Krusty Gets Busted. 3, Life on the Fast Lane. 2, There's No Disgrace Like Home. And 1, Moaning Lisa.
Hell yeah. We had pretty similar. Yeah. Like, there's a few things out of order, but like, we generally had like the same ones near the bottom. Mm-hmm. There's a few that flipped out of there. Heck yeah, those 3 though, man. Those are good eps. Good eps.
Yeah, man.
Heck yeah, man. I know we're gonna be talking about other shows, but like after talking about this, I'm like, can't wait to do season 2. I can't wait to talk about season 2. Which we got to figure out when we're gonna do that. Well, we're gonna see how you guys like this, because we're gonna be dropping this and Family Guy and King of the Hill and Bob's Burgers and South Park, and we're gonna see how y'all respond to them, and that might dictate how we move forward.
Right.
But I have to say, if we talked, I think we have 3.5 hours of conversation about 13 episodes of The Simpsons.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, if we do season 2, which is 22 episodes, I mean, we're gonna have to do 11 at a time, and even split those in half. Like, we're gonna have to spend a month talking about the show.
We're the worst.
Or are we the best?
We the best? Yeah, either way, it depends.
But we might have to like really think about that, because we're not gonna be able to help ourselves. We're not gonna be able to stop talking about it if we want to.
Yeah, and I'm sure the people that listen to this don't want us to half-ass the Simpsons conversation.
Exactly. We don't want to rush through this shit. Yeah. So like, I feel like ultimately what we'll do is we'll end up posting them as, well, it's hard to say how we'll post them on YouTube. We'll have to figure that out, whether we do one full like,
I think we should do one full. Yeah, fuck it, bro. I think we should do it.
I think you're right, honestly. Why not? Why the fuck not? But we'll probably release them in like quarters on the
audio.
They'll probably be listed as like Simpsons season 2 episodes 1 through 6, Simpsons season 2 episodes 7 through 11, season 2 episode 12 through 17 or whatever. And that's gonna be how we have to do it, because we simply do not have the that's how we got to do it.
Yeah.
Which is gonna mean it's gonna mean this podcast will never end. Sorry. But I'd rather just start talking about the things that I really want to talk about than worry about will we ever finish?
Yeah, who cares?
But season 2, man, like looking ahead to season 2, whenever we get to it, Bart gets an F, man. Fucking
Lisa Substitute.
Lisa Substitute, dude. I'm gonna watch that on VHS when we cover it. Fucking Bart vs. Thanksgiving, Bart the Daredevil.
Oh, Bart vs. Thanksgiving is so fucking good.
The way we was.
Yeah.
There's so
that one's good,
dude.
The way we was is super fucking good. Yeah.
Oh, brother, where art thou?
Not Homeward the Bat. No, Homeward the Bat is 3, I think.
I think it's season 3.
But the Blowfish one is 2.
It is. James Earl Jones reads the Bible.
Love that one.
King James version, right? Or no, was it? No, it's someone else. I think I mistook that because I saw that in real life. I saw an audiobook in real life of James Earl Jones reading the Bible. It was like Larry King or something.
Oh, dude, I think it was like Larry King or something.
Larry King.
I think it was like Larry
That's really
King.
funny. Is Homer at the Bat? Where is Homer at the Bat?
Simpson and Goliath is 2, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Homer at the Bat is season 3. And that'll be interesting because season 3 is when we get into the Al Jean, Mike Reiss era. So like season 2 is another one that I have grown. So like, I always loved season 2, but like I've grown to like ridiculously appreciate season 2. It felt like it was those original 3 guys who were running the show, honing in on what the show was going to be and how it was going to be successful in such, like, even just with that first episode, Bart Gets an F is so good.
Fucking good, yeah.
And so I can't wait. Cannot wait to cover it. Like, the more now after talking about season 1, I'm like, oh, let's just do it now. Man, good shit. All right. Well, you got anything to plug? Granted, this won't be out for like a month or 2.
Yeah, nah, man. I probably got something out by now. Go watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, go watch the new stuff. Yeah. Guys, go look at our channels, click uploads, see what's new.
Yeah.
And check out the Patreon. Please check out the Patreon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We have a bunch of bonus episodes up there right now. I'll list them off. We've got Shrek, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, Puss in Boots, Anomalisa, Paddington, Paddington 2, Ted, Ted 2. And by the time this comes out, we will probably have somewhere between 2 and 4 Toy Stories on there. And there will be all 4 at some point. But I think by the time this releases, we'll have only a couple of them up.
Yeah, man. And them Ted episodes crank, man. Ted, you gotta watch the Ted ones. I gotta watch the Ted ones.
Mean old Moon.
Mean old Moon, man. Stop playing. All right.
All right. Well, let's close it out. With that, I want to thank Jake Neutron for our incredible theme song. I want to thank Carrie Feek for our amazing artwork. I want to thank Michael Yunez for producing and editing the podcast. I want to thank Toonerific Tariq for co-hosting and talking about cartoons with me. And I want to thank you, the audience, for